Economics is astrology, man.
I mean, like economics, like there's I'll say with full confidence, there's been zero model period that has ever been able to predict with a certain degree of accuracy anything.
Oh, I heard I hear this take repeated so many times and it just triggers the ever living fuck out of me. For some reason, people like to repeat over and over again that economics doesn't predict anything real. Like, if you believe this, then every single social science will fail in the exact same way. It is true that we do not have like a grand unifying theory of economics that can explain or predict all future phenomenon, but there are plenty of smaller scale, incredibly obvious things that we can look at that economics can make decent predictions about. If I sell two candy bars, sure. If I sell two candy bars that are exactly the same and I lower the price on one, like I have a sale, I'm going to sell more. If I advertise a product to people and I, display a higher utility for some product or whatever, I'm probably going to sell more things. There's plenty of different ways that economics can make accurate predictions based on how people respond to like pricing models and incentives and wage offers and all sorts of things that are not only like, theoretically stated, but are empirically driven and proven on a day-to-day basis. Just the idea that econ is a fake science or doesn't make any predictions, if that's true, you have to make the same concession for every single social science.
So I'm not saying it's a fake science, right, at all. All I'm saying, right, is the idea that like economics is a pure like data-driven kind of like interpretation of everything is just not like a good take, right? Because like it is a mix of like both like empirical data and like hard science stuff, but then it's also a mix of like social sciences of like what drives people to buy things, right? Like,
what you're describing is every single social science, right?
No, I mean, yes, all social sciences are subjective to the norms that they exist in.
Okay, so how's it going? Fam? What's the topic for tonight? What are we talking about right now?
I don't even know. Destiny, I have a question. Was there a specific claim that you thought was representing that point that you made, or are you just stressing something?
I think it was Feline Father, and I think Dr. K. I heard the take that economics has never made any accurate predictions ever, which is weird. And then interest rates
said that.
Wait, no one said that? Nobody said
what I said was there's no current model period that is like accurate within a certain degree of like certainty of like being able to predict markets and stuff. That's what I'm saying.
Well, hold on. Now, if we're gonna walk it back to that level, then that was original point.
There's no walking back.
That was so. I'm telling you, that was not what was originally said. We can go back and clip it if you want. Okay.
I think you're summarizing what we were saying. You said something like I was barely paying attention, but like Feline Father, if I'm not incorrect, you said no economic period has predicted anything something like that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. And that might have been slightly hyperbolic, which is fine. But then on the back, I make hyperbolic statements all the time, which is fine. But then on the back of Dr. K's stupid statement of like economics is like astrology, I see a lot of like uninformed and uneducated leftists like push this idea a lot because they don't understand economics. So they think that it's like black magic because they don't understand.
I don't understand economics, huh?
If you're lefty, most likely, yeah. But I'm just saying that whenever somebody makes a statement like econ is like astrology, like it's pretty clear that they don't know anything about probably econ or astrology. But that particular thing, because also interest rates were given an example, and we have an entire Federal Reserve that sets like target unemployment and inflation rates, and for the most part does a decentish job since the Great Depression, done a decent job of like hitting those rates. So it just seems a little strange to say we can never make predictions about any of these things when we kind of have to do it like on a daily basis when the federal funds rate is set, among other things.
Also have a hot take. Astrology, there's a certain degree of legitimacy to it. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying. If you think that a person born in two different seasons will have the same outcomes in regards to like how they interact with people, you're just wrong. Yeah.
Sure. The Japanese. I don't know what it's called. The Japanese have a thing about your blood type, also predicting similar things. Right? Is that equally as valid?
Like blood type, like what? Like predicting
if you have a type A or a type B.
Get a raise at work this week? Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, but astrology, there's a certain degree of accuracy to it. Being honest here,
I think what Feline Father was trying to really talk about was sort of just like, I mean, granted, it's very a very generalized statement. Is like seasons, not necessarily like Jupiter was around this like constellation, therefore impacted my life. It's like it's like if you were born in the winter or if you were born in the summer or you're born during different seasons, that can impact your development or it can impact your how you were raised or the environment in which you were raised in.
But that's walking it back. That's not just
No,
what.
no, that's exactly what he said. He said
No. He
that's
said
just what, like,
what I'm saying is that astrology itself is a lot more than that. It's about the Jupiter rising or whatever the fuck it is, right? Like it's about all that stuff. And it's not simply.
You're just saying that because you're such an Aries. To be fair.
Yeah. Right.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like half of the world is in winter when we're in summer, right? So like, how can that?
Right. Yeah. So obviously, it doesn't actually affect anything, right?
Well, I'm an Aries, so there you go.
We could just draw broad connections about large populations who happen to be born at a certain amount of time, and we see that doesn't work, right? We know that this doesn't work. We know that twins.
Wait, okay.
Yeah.
If you don't like astrology, though, how can you talk about millennials and Zoomers?
I'm so
and
confused.
Boomers and all that. Isn't that
I was being very like memeing when I was saying all this
How did
stuff.
it start in
Yeah, can we get back to monetary policy? That's much more boring and way more in my.
Way more impactful too.
He said it, so I just wanted to address it that astrology is crap. To anyone who might be listening, for just anyone out there who might think differently, astrology is crap. All right,
astrology is crap. Most economic schools are crap.
Most economic schools are crap. That's probably
Marx was an astrologer. I'm just gonna put that out there.
And his economy,
Marxism destroyed. There you go.
Yeah.
Wrap it up, folks. We gotta go home now.
So what about leftists? I'm gonna ask Destiny. Because I've never actually interacted with you in terms of like your views on leftists in general. Honestly, I haven't interacted with you on any of views. I think I'm a leftist. So let's pick an issue. Like if it's economics or whatever. Like what is it that drives you wild about?
No. Leftists are dumb. They don't know economics. We just heard it.
I would say markets, honestly.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary. I would say that most leftists lack a fundamental understanding of almost anything related to how almost anything works in economics, basically. And even they don't even understand the leftist critiques of economics, which is like even more funny. But
it's not as though I'm published in this exact field.
Like just let me ask you this: Would you agree that like a lot of people like in the Republican Party have a fundamental don't have any idea regarding like how like markets actually work? Like they just kind of spout off like the same like points because it just sounds cool, and like they like to circle jerk each other about fucking like laissez-faire.
For the Republican Party?
Yeah,
probably. I mean, the Republicans spent more money.
Anybody that's ever uttered the word trickle down has absolutely no fucking idea how anything works.
So leftists don't understand economics and then write critiques on economics and then don't understand the critiques that they wrote on the economics that they don't know. That totally makes fucking perfect sense.
I'm not talking about the leftists that actually write books. I'm talking about the ones that call themselves leftists that go online that haven't even read the Communist Manifesto.
So left-wingers don't understand economics. Right-wingers don't understand economics. Is it only the enlightened centrist who understands economics?
That's what I'm saying.
Nobody understands economics. Somebody asked me in regards to like Republicans. So like a lot of politicians, when they give econ takes, are pretty bad. Most of them are usually just things to appeal to the population. When I was talking left, I was talking about like people online that go online and give like takes. I would expect those people to be a little bit more honest about their opinions because they don't have to appeal to like a voting population, and you have time to do more research about specific things. But the general state of like discourse online, broadly speaking, is pretty bad when it comes to econ stuff. It's pretty horrible.
I mean, yeah, anyone with a modem can give their take, so yeah, it's going to be pretty shit.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on there, Steven. Here. Yeah.
I was gonna say at least my like the largest critique that I would have of a lot of leftists is what I don't like is the way that they view engaging with co-ops and like mandating those and how that works on an international scale. A lot of people have a fundamental misunderstanding of like how those two aspects engage, and what I found is a lot of people who don't know very much about that have a lot of like fundamental just misunderstandings of the way that like trade works, forms of central planning, and banking engages in the same way as well. That's probably my largest critique that bothers me the most.
Okay.
Can I ask which things in particular?
To be fair, no one knows about economics, left or right. The overwhelming populace knows nothing about economics.
Yeah, I agree.
I barely know about economics
because, like, I don't mind like progressives or people can talk about issues, but when you call yourself a leftist, like, it usually has like a pretty specific economic bend. So it seems really strange to me that so many leftists call themselves leftists and then critique capitalism, but oftentimes the critiques fall flat because they don't even understand what they're critiquing.
I found leftists to be like more like a moral argument, in my opinion. Like they're just looking
and I'm not a
so
leftist,
often,
right?
Even if you make the
That's
moral
my
argument,
critique
okay,
against a
I
leftist.
try really hard to never
It's
make
moral, but it's not practical. It's not pragmatic.
Okay, so all right, excuse me, Stephen. You're making a lot of claims here, right?
Can I?
Hold on 1 second. And I do want to hear from you, Dr. K, as well, because I think you have a
Fellow
lot you
commie,
want to
yes.
say. Yes, yeah, I want to. But okay, so you're making a lot of claims about like how leftists don't know this and that. Now, if you're talking about like Twitter discourse, right? Well, I'm actually sure you're 100% right on literally everything you've just said. Well, we have specific people who have these beliefs. Let's have a discussion. What is it that we don't understand? Let's be specific here. Stephen.
I mean, do you want to go like through historical examples? Do you want me to just like spit off topics, or
I don't know. You just keep saying you don't understand these things. So
I mean, like, so in terms of general, so everything relating to capital markets, leftists just totally don't understand. So whether we talk about recently, like the whole GME thing, whether we talk about stock buybacks, whether we talk about like revenue that a company makes, none of these things are understood by, it doesn't seem to be when people talk about. So like when I see somebody just criticize a company for their revenue, or even when I just see somebody criticize a company for their profit and not a profit as percentage, or like all these like random critiques are usually just, they miss the mark, or they show that the person doesn't really understand like what, you know, a profit margin is supposed to be for a publicly traded company, or what fiduciary responsibility is when they criticize a publicly traded company for doing things that's in the best interest of the board members, right? We could talk about that. We could talk about how people get upset about how like, why is a senator paid $80 an hour and a McDonald's worker is $10 an hour? But it's an essential work. It needs an essential wage. Like, oh, well, where do wages come from? Like, what do you even mean by that? I mean, like so there's like two popular examples of some historical stories. We can talk about like wages or the value of labor, or whatever. Like, I don't know, whatever. Literally almost any single topic that lefties like have to splurge about online is just hilariously underinformed.
Value of labor sounds interesting, but before we do that, let's go to Dr. K, then we'll go back to Puller, because Puller seems to have some examples as well. So Dr. K, then Puller.
I mean, what am I supposed to say to that? Like, if you look hard enough online, you can find an idiot for everything, right? Like, we live in a golden age of opportunity where if you want a dumbass boy howdy, you can have one on your doorstep in 5 fucking minutes on Discord, on Twitter, on any fucking platform you want, right? Like, you know, finding a moron ain't fucking that hard. That said, you know, I would say that a lot of people who come to the left wing, you know, you have ideological thought leaders, and then you have people who simply understand that they kind of believe this argument and then just kind of follow along with it, right? People who are looking around them and saying, hey, you know, the systems that be are kind of fucked and working against me. So I believe that there should be a change. And then, you know, they don't really research too deeply into what that change is. They just simply believe that there does need to be this fundamental change in the system because, you know, it's very easy to understand something is wrong with you. It is much harder to, you know, be able to prescribe the exact solution to what that is that's wrong, right? And as far as like, you know, I don't know, that little bullshit like jab at that like minimum wage thing, it's like, yeah, minimum wage does need to be higher, but that's neither here nor there. And like, you know, if this is a thing that bothers you, Steve, so much, right? Like, you know, you're kind of in the similar part of the world as me. Like, you could organize within your community and actually push for policy you want to see, rather than lefties who are kind of on an upswing.
Yeah, I mean,
right now.
So I mean, I have like a different problem with this, which is that like lefty discourse.
Wait, do I what? Wait, what?
Wait, what?
What?
I don't know. I've been organizing in LA for some time now, and I haven't seen you be doing much of nothing.
I don't organize in LA. That's not where I'm from. I organize in Georgia, and I'm organizing in Omaha.
But you live in LA, don't you?
Whatever happened in Georgia?
Yeah, what happened in Georgia again? What was that?
Nothing. Nothing's ever happened.
Yeah, nothing happened there. Yeah.
Does my dude live in LA though?
Let's go to Puller, who's been waiting.
Yeah, so I would also say that like I would apply that same critique of capital markets, specifically labor, and then how firms gain capital when it comes to the prescriptive solutions of a lot of leftists. But I can think of specific leftists that I know that have easily been able to address these things and are informed in this aspect. And then secondly, when it comes to like the difference between when it comes to like the way that a lot of leftists see economic policy, like looking at the actual economic policy and then making like a moral judgment about that rather than the outcome of that like economic policy. And that's what kind of bothers me a little bit. But like those are the two main things that I necessarily like hold that a lot of leftists online have issues with.
Okay, that moral judgment thing's interesting. Go ahead, Vivian, and then Socrates.
Sure, yeah. So Stephen has, in all fairness, like organized a lot more than quite a few of the fucking like dipshit theory bro fucking communists on this platform. Like he's leveraged his platform to try and affect some degree of political change. And like, although like we don't agree on a lot of things, like I have mad respect for like using your platform in that way, and I wish a lot of like larger left-wing content creators would do that.
I was under the false assumption he was an Angelino, sorry.
Yeah, that's not like fucking saying that anybody here who's done activism, like your activism is bullshit. I'm just saying, like, if you have a large online platform and you like preach leftism in general, you should probably be leveraging that large online platform towards like leftist causes. But in opposition to Stephen, I would say, like, you don't have to be a fucking expert in economics to consider yourself a leftist. Like,
yeah, the problem isn't being an expert in economics. My problem is just that like all of the criticisms just end up being worthless and meaningless. It reminds me of Occupy Wall Street, where you've got people that are screeching online about how like corporations aren't people. It's like, what do you even mean by that? Like, like when all of the criticism just doesn't make sense, but they are and they need to be. Didn't you say you published in the field? I guess econ isn't finance, but they like the fact that people have all of these pointed criticisms that point at nothing and have no like reflection of like what actually needs to be changed, or more importantly, what would actually.
Why do they need to be people?
Corporations need to be people because they need to be able to own property and they need to be able to represent themselves in court. You want to be able to take a corporation to law if they wrong you. You can't take the individual owners of said corporation. That wouldn't make any sense.
So
corporations also are people
before they were considered people. Before they were considered people, they just didn't have property, I guess, huh? Like,
what do you mean by considered people?
Like before the Citizens United and all that sort of ruling like came out, like clearly corporations didn't have property before that point.
All I know is that in a legal sense, a corporation needs to exist as a separate legal entity because it's the way that our taxes.
Yeah, a separate legal entity, not as a human being, though.
A corporation is not seen as a human being.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're considered separate entities. It's not like they're given like agency.
See, this type of misinformation is exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's such a worthless criticism because all it does is mislead people. Nobody even knows what the conversation should even be about.
We've got Pisco in the chat. Let's fucking tell us. Okay. Is a corporation a person according to the Constitution?
It's a legal person, but it's not like they have like medical rights or they don't have like
can I just so they have like First Amendment rights. Yeah. That's like the relevant thing. Right?
That's Citizens United. Yeah, that doesn't like that specifically somewhat refers to that.
Like, okay, so we can all recognize it's like a little bit strange that a corporation can spend unlimited money on like advertising for some political cause. Like we can all recognize slightly strange. Well, okay. So
we can argue Citizens United if you want. I'm very confident that nobody has a good argument against Citizens United. If you want to do that one.
Against Citizens United.
That's my entire argument.
Unlimited paying like into super PACs like to run fucking shadow campaigns for fucking Newt Gingrich kind of shit.
Here's a super simple question, everybody here. I'd love to hear your guys. So let's say that I want to make a documentary about climate change, and let's say that I want to advertise for that climate change documentary, but it's like 30 days before some election. Should the federal government tell me that I'm not allowed to advertise that documentary?
Okay, so we can
unrelated.
Recognize
that's completely related. That's completely related.
Recognize different types of things, right? So we can recognize as people that like a fossil fuel corporation spending millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on like anti-fossil fuel propaganda is fundamentally different from a group of people who are individual citizens getting together to form a PAC to produce some kind of advertisement that says global warming is a bad thing, right? Like we can recognize truth. We can recognize varying amounts of like individual citizens, right? Like these are.
All I'm asking is,
I'm not saying that we can draw like an exact line. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but the problem is I don't know where that line would be anywhere. If you wanted to fund some sort of documentary, you can argue that literally anything you make can be political in nature. It could be a documentary about gun violence.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
So the idea that the federal government
is a weird thing that you would have to cut at some exact point.
Well,
That's,
it
like,
is cut
not
as an exact
obvious,
point.
like-
You can't directly corroborate
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
collaborate with a person's campaign. That's what the difference between like a PAC and a super PAC, right? Is
Yep.
that a super PAC doesn't have reporting abilities, or they're not supposed to work hand in hand with another campaign. That's
It
illegal.
would be some arbitrary line that you would draw that you would say this is like the number of millions of dollars compared to the number of people. You would have some weird ratio that you would draw between number of people.
Sure, but
and
I'm
number
just saying
of
that, like,
dollars.
so in the case of, so in the exact
it'd
case
be
of
kind of
Citizens-
arbitrary.
in the exact case of Citizens United, it was a conservative nonprofit entity that wanted to advertise a film that was critical of Hillary Clinton. Now, I actually I haven't seen the particular film, and I'm sure the film is filled with a lot of bullshit, but are we comfortable with the federal government coming in and saying, hold on, you're not allowed to do that because it's going to interfere with an election?
Wait,
Yes, I'm fine
I
with
think,
that.
I think like the federal government is a red herring. It's the question of whether like this hurts or helps our democracy, right?
That's not the goal of the Supreme Court, though.
Corporations need to stay out of politics. Plain simple.
The federal government's role
Wait,
is critical here because that's the basis of the striking down of the law, is because the First Amendment is a protection from government influence, and of course that applies to the federal government. So I mean, in that particular case, the nonprofit was taking corporate money purposely because nonprofits generally had an exclusion under the law, but they did that precisely to challenge the law in question. And what Destiny is talking about, I think, are some of the hard lines that need to be drawn. And why? How could you ever draw a line that says something like for-profit corporations don't have a right to spend money as a way of expression, but unions do? In fact, unions were not
Unions
allowed.
should be able
under
to
the law.
spend money on politics. Corporations should not.
Wait,
Plain and simple.
Okay, but the
That's
law,
my stance.
just so you know, the Citizens United, the law in question, the BRCA, affected both unions and for-profit corporations equally.
But
And it was
that's
struck down
the
for
thing,
both.
though, is there's no union, not even the AFL-CIO,
But
that's
what's-
ever going to be able to match like some of these large fucking corporations are going to be able to show out.
I
know
think you're
that, plain
overstating also
simple.
the role of
Is it
corporations in
anything-
politics. I mean,
Is it
there's
unions are more democratic and that like corporations are inherently like undemocratic because
they're not inherently undemocratic, and the corporation rule was without regard to size. It was any for-profit corporation, and also, I don't know. It's really difficult to say that unions are just generally more democratic than corporations.
No,
what is your basis
I'm
saying
with
that?
Sanders on this one. Like, fucking Citizens United has been a fucking
disaster.
disaster for our.
But it also hasn't
for our
been because
democracy.
our markets for communications related to elections are so saturated anyway. First of all, a lot of corporations just don't want to get into the ring of throwing money in terms of they'll throw a lot of money in lobbying. But they won't do it for
Pisco,
election
do you know about
communications.
Prop 22 here in California?
I don't know anything about California state law or proposition.
Basically, Uber managed to buy a law into effect.
That's lobbying,
by,
right?
By putting out so much money for a disinformation campaign that
they lost.
But that's not election communications. That's
This was a
lobbying.
referendum on whether or not you wanted to outlaw Uber in California. You think the majority
it was
of people
not
in
to
California,
outlaw. It was about the
wasn't
status
outlaw.
of the drivers.
If you were to make them, if you were to make
Was
them
that the
W-2
contractor law?
Yes, if you were to make Uber drivers W-2 employees, one, you would probably hurt the driver because they wouldn't be able to work for parallel companies, and two, it would just disappear as a service. It wouldn't be tenable. You couldn't afford it.
That's also
Uber
not what
isn't
the law
profitable
did.
as it
That's
is.
not
It's
what the
held
law
up
did.
already.
But Dr. K, do you think that corporations should have no political stake in lobbying? Because this is different, right? One is lobbying, the other is electoral communication.
Listen. Lobbying, I don't like it. I think that it shouldn't be a thing either. Honestly, if I could, I would see every corporation out of politics.
Media
like,
corporations. Are you going to ban a newspaper from publishing things related to the election?
Or YouTubers or Twitch streamers from talking about politics online.
So
You're
media
not a
corporations
corporation, dude. Come on.
I am actually. I'm a small corporation. I filed my LLC.
You yourself are not a corporation,
No,
Mr.
but Destiny
Steve.
LLC
Take a
is
deep.
what is partnered with Twitch.
He's
and
an
YouTube,
agent.
and
He's
that's
an
what
agent of the
Li-
corporation.
Listen, technically, I have a corporation. Like, I'm technically incorporated as I have a nonprofit. Like,
Well, Dr. K, answer
yeah.
the question. So all
I
of our like established First Amendment laws, like the New York Times versus Sullivan, these are cases involving corporations.
I do not want corporations running dark money campaigns like through super PACs.
Well, they're not. I mean, the evidence is that
They
the parties
are.
are
Again,
the parties are
how are you
oversaturating.
aware of the Newt Gingrich campaign where essentially he had no money, but he was able to out-advertise his opponent because some fucking shadowy Koch brother super PACs were essentially like propping up a shadow campaign for the guy.
First of all, there's limited and tenuous evidence that corporate
There is not tenuous
expenditures
evidence.
affect the outcomes of elections. in large
They
quantities.
they sway politicians. They sway fucking. Oh, dude, this is what makes us a fucking corporatist nation, and not an actual.
We're a corporatist nation because if we say it enough, maybe it'll become true. Just this idea on its head that lobbying should be illegal is like everybody's idea of what lobbying is you think that like some shady guys with a pack of cigars goes into some back. Like lobbying could literally be you've got like 3 guys that run corner stores in your city, and they decide to go and talk to the local mayor because they want like preferential tax treatment because they like sell things in the off season or something, right? Like that could literally that is lobbying, right?
Okay, but is that what's happening?
Yeah, but that's not the state of lobbying in the United States.
What do you think the state of law is?
I guess my problem is who's going to hold more clout with swaying opinion: the 3 corner store owners, or some fucking like mega corporation who's going to move in and like, hey, give me preferential tax treatment, or like put me on this tax bracket. I'll open up a building in your fucking in your vicinity.
In all honesty, this election cycle and this whole thing with Trump,
were you more about it?
Were you
What's
more
the
scared?
actual solution to this kind of lobbying?
Lobbying is necessarily good. It works. And it helps people to have voice that they wouldn't normally have. And it also like it has necessary disclosure. Like that's not really the issue. It's the contributions thing. I think that was the primary contention.
Well, I don't think. Well, then what? How do you know that it's an issue? You're saying it's an issue. Why do you know it's an issue?
Like what the contributions?
Why are election communications and expenditures an issue in American politics?
I think that I think that we have a right to know who our candidates are taking money from, and also like.
Well, hang on, no, not taking money from. There's limits, and the Constitution and Supreme Court has said it's okay to set limits on direct quid pro quo like contributions directly to the actual campaign. Of course, we all have to abide by those.
Yep,
correct. We all have those.
Yeah, but super PACs do not have this limit.
Because super PACs don't work with campaigns.
Right, they don't work directly. There's coordination in terms of they have.
I understand.
The same interests, but
it means that whoever's the most pro corporate candidate is going to get fucking a super PAC shadow campaign running for them.
Okay, so first of all, you're saying that's true, but like really step back and think about that. Do we know that's true? I mean, why do you think that?
Yes, again, literally it happened with Newt Gingrich.
We can bring up examples where that's not the case, Dr. K. When you have like massively quote unquote uncorporatist politicians that still like have the ability to gain a corporation, gain funding, and be able to compete with other candidates.
I am fascinated by you guys. Like everyone fucking hates Citizens United. Why are you all now suddenly?
It's not an appeal to consensus.
Exactly, the problem is because people like you are online tweeting about uninformed, stupid shit about it. That's why everybody hates it. People think that Citizens United made it so that corporations could donate unlimited amounts of money to campaigns and win elections that way. When like there's like 3 different stages of this fails. One, there's not even proof that massive expenditures of money actually sway elections, even though people just completely take that for granted, right? If you look at the overall money spent in an election cycle in the US, it's actually surprisingly low given what's at stake. Okay, one. And then number 2, the idea that you can infinitely donate to like campaigns or whatever, a lot of the language that you've used has betrayed a misunderstanding of how these entities are structured.
No, yeah, super PACs are separate institutions.
What do you think Citizens United did?
But they have.
No. Super PACs were allowed before this. So super PACs were allowed before Citizens United, and that was what they were saying. The government was saying, if any corporation wants to have expenditures related to election communications, use your super PAC. Citizens United did not change that. Citizens United said, no. The corporations have a right by themselves to express their views about elections and about who should win. That's what happened. So the nature of the PAC situation didn't change. Noticeable. And also, I think there's some question begging here. Why is corporatist influence bad in the first place?
Oh, you
have to justify that.
I was going to go the other way around and ask
there's
you to justify what are the advantages of having that money there? What do you think, Stephen Pisco? Like, what do you
there's a number of advantages for if corporations are like literally the fucking people that are employing people in the United States. You want to make sure that an issue that a corporation faces, it has the ability to present that issue to some congressman so that they can weigh that particular side of an issue when it comes to crafting legislation. It's vital that you have.
Hey, Congressman Jerry, I need you to weaken the NLRB. They're trying to unionize my factory.
Let him finish. Let him finish his point. We can respond. Go ahead, Stephen. Finish your point.
I don't know why unions are held up. Like unions are really important, and the negotiating power that unions can have are important. Okay. However, like unions were literally champions of racism. Okay, in the civil rights era of the United States, that required like federal government intervention to get them to actually let black people work normal jobs. So this idea of holding up unions of these bastions of morality that can never do anything wrong or never have any like corrupting influence on workers is hilariously
that's nothing I said though, dude.
Stephen, first of all, you're arguing against a straw man. Hold on.
No, but it's her logic. It's her logic.
Okay.
Because
That's
she's
a lot
picking
to-
out some.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, she literally said that corporations should not be allowed to lobby, but unions should be allowed to lobby.
she did
The
say that.
implication there
She
is
did say
that union lobbying is always okay and corporate, or generally okay, and corporate lobby is generally not okay. Which is
But she reached a few cases.
If a corporation is democratic, then I will say
What is a
all right.
corporation?
What's that?
What is a corporation?
You're gonna fucking hit me on some semantics shit. Like,
No, I mean,
you said you published papers in econ. You tried to throw that at me earlier, right?
yes, I'm a political scientist by trade.
I'll see you.
Like,
I'm trying to tell you that
you want me to describe what a corporation is, and then when I mess up one word, you're gonna
the reason I'm asking this question is because, and I'm not going to make you answer it, but corporations generally are extremely diverse.
I'm so curious. Isn't a corporation just something that has like a board to have the filing as a corporation? You just need that like a 3 or 4 person board, and then stakeholders, right?
No,
it depends, right?
I'm a corporation. I do not have a board.
No, the answer is it depends on state law. Corporations are a creature of state statute for the most part, and they're extremely diverse in their organization. You can have no stock holders. You can have, your certificate of incorporation has to have certain details according to state law. You can have bylaws that are it's extremely diverse. So saying corporation in one word is extremely, I think, you have to be careful with that, because corporations range from very, very small to very, very big. What they do, where they're incorporated, the nature of their laws. So we have to be careful, I think, and be specific about what we're talking about here.
The most
over-inclusive.
The most powerful of which, though, I would say holds some sort of commonality in traits.
What are those?
Extreme hierarchy, essentially.
I don't think your line of questioning, I'm not a Pisco, but like your answering of this is not good, Dr. K.
Me?
Dr. K. I think you're gonna walk yourself into a corner.
I don't want to go in this, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it goes to show that
He's been fucking sea-lined and jumped pretty fucking hard. Like, Pisco and Destiny have been fucking speaking for like 99% of the last 10 minutes, just like asking her repeated fucking questions that she hasn't actually like got much of a fucking word in.
Okay, I want to push back on this. Okay, when she literally tried to brag earlier that she published some way to float knowledge over me in this field, and then like is failing to answer incredibly basic questions and then giving takes that betray a complete misunderstanding of every issue being discussed. Like when people are really aggressive with dog shit takes over and over again just because nobody's there to challenge them, that's like a special trigger for me, Vivian. I love you, okay, but it actually uniquely triggers
Destiny Inquisition.
But this is why.
Okay.
So this is why.
Is there like a specific question that we could try to?
Hey, please let Vivian finish.
So this is why I asked like earlier, right? Like, and I think Dr. K was like moving towards it. I'm a dumb fuck on economics, okay? Like I'm a socialist incidentally because my anarchism leads me to believe that capitalism sets up unjust hierarchies. I don't have any fucking good solutions of how to fucking solve any of that shit, right? I'll leave that to the big brain fucking economics majors. But like, I heard something from what Dr. K was saying about like setting about like hierarchical institutions, right? Which goes back to like one of my first questions that I asked during this conversation is that does Dr. K think that corporations ought not lobby because they are inherently undemocratic institutions in that like it is CEOs who run property get to tell their workers what to do,
the board of directors. Wait. The board of directors runs corporations.
Versus, I'm just asking what she thinks, okay? Like, stop telling me what's right and what's wrong. I'm just asking what she thinks for now, okay?
But yes, they're
like unions which are like supposed to be, and not all are, but supposed to be like democratic bottom-up institutions. Is that right?
Well, exactly. Like there's almost no accountability for your average worker to be able to hold the board of directors to account for a corporation. And so when a corporation is lobbying, it is not necessarily lobbying in the interest of the people who are members of its institution, that being its workforce, right?
Why should it?
Well, it's necessarily arguing against the workforce is the problem, and that's why the leftists have generally taken this anti-corporate stance on most every issue.
Well, why should corporations argue on behalf of their employees and their agents?
I don't know, Pisco. I can't force you to care about people.
Dr. K,
the moralizing begins.
Dr. K, I just want to check in with you. Just hold on 1 second, guys, everyone. Dr. K, I just want to check in with you. Do you feel like you're being a bit overwhelmed or anything? I just want to make sure that everything is cool with you.
No, I'm good, mate. I'm fine.
Okay, we talked about this before.
It's all good, man.
I just want to check in with you.
I really don't give a fuck about Destiny's audience. They can't do shit to me, man.
Oh no, okay.
So
Okay, sure. Anyway, but like, okay, go ahead, Viv. But I want to jump in here at some point. Go ahead.
Sure, no worries. Destiny said two things earlier about like corporations as people. One was like they need to be they need to be like legally persons in order that they can one of them was like own property, right? And I think that's like the fundamentalist kind of like leftist opposition to corporations and people anyway, because they don't believe that like property or at least the means of production should be privately owned, right? That's the fucking cornerstone of like social.
Even if it was publicly owned, like by a co-op,
the
the co-op would still need to be like some organized body, right? You can't have Fred come in and say, I own 3% of the Friar today, so I'm going to shut it off. Like you would still need to have some central body, even if it was 100% democratic. There still have to be some separate entity that owns all of those assets and can represent itself in court.
It's separate to the corporation question, because before corporations came into wide use, the main form of organizing your business was partnerships. And that was a different, for various reasons, including limited liability, among others, centralized ownership and control. We chose the corporate form, but that doesn't change the nature of the private ownership interest at stake under partnerships and corporations. So I don't see the necessary thing that corporations bring to the table that wasn't there with partnerships.
And there's also a bunch of things that are specific about co-ops that corporations really don't solve that well either. So there's that.
Well, corporations scale well.
They do. They scale well.
I think what seems to be the problem, right, is that the private ownership allows like one person or a small board of people to have a huge amount of power over like the collective wealth of a company that is made up of like a huge amount of individuals and may not actually represent the opinions of all those individuals who work for that company, right? Which makes it like they're sort of wielding the power of those below them to like influence the government to rule against them.
I would say this isn't even an inherent trait, though, right? Like about a corporation. This is pretty post-Milton Friedman in that aspect, right? Like, who does a corporation, like, who are they held accountable to? Who are they responsible for? So I wouldn't even say this is inherent to the structure of a corporation. This is something that's like pretty post-80s. So I think a lot of these critiques can necessarily exist within our current system and benefit.
So
in the state of California, my corporation is literally held liable to the state of California.
Okay, so I think we're
but you're not held liable, right?
No. No, it depends on what type of corporate setup you have, like LLC and stuff like that, where it can be you are the corporation or you're a separate entity as a representative of the corporation,
so
depending on state law.
My problem with this conversation is that like we're getting right now into the weeds of what a fucking corporation is. Like that's not interesting or useful, I don't think, right?
Well, this is exactly what I disagree about. Yeah, is that like it's actually so important to this conversation that somebody thinks that like an LLC is a corporation, for instance, or that people don't actually know like what separate legal entities are. Like it's actually the most important part, because if you don't have a fundamental understanding of why these things exist, then the other positions actually completely and totally logically follow. Like
I'm actually going to 100% agree with Destiny on this right now. Exactly.
Okay, go ahead. Okay. Finish your point, Stephen. Well, you said
why the fuck should a corporation, be a separate person? Like, why do they get rights? Like, that's insane. It's just this big dark pool of money that does these evil things, blah, 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 blah. Like, it would seem to be a ridiculous thing unless you realize, like, okay, hold on. I just slipped and fell in a Walmart because their floor was wet, and now I'm fucked, and I don't even know who I'm supposed to sue, because what do I have to do? Figure out like 50 different parties that are responsible for this? Or do I have one corporation, right? Or if a corporation needs to represent itself in court as a plaintiff against somebody, right? Like, who does, like, or if the corporation like has some filings, like how do they keep track of their taxes? Like, they need to be separate entities. Like, just have to be that way.
Hold on. Okay, sure. But has anyone said that they shouldn't be separate entities? I want to be sure about that, right?
But they're undercutting the rationale underlying corporations, which are, and the policy rationales for having some of the features of corporations, such as limited liability, in that it promotes investment. It allows people to order their lives easier in many ways. In many ways, it's flawed. I agree. I don't think corporations are coextensive with people. I don't think Destiny said that either. They just have they're a legal entity that has certain entitlements. And so before we just dismiss the policy rationales governing corporations in general and corporate law in general, I think we should consider them before doing things like saying that they shouldn't have right to private expenditures in election communications.
We are not even getting into the heart of the matter. That's the issue. Hold on. No, nothing. Do you have your hand up? It's hard for me to see.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, to me, it seems like I don't really care like if corporations are legally allowed to do this or do that. Like, I just care more about like right now corporations do have an outsized influence in elections compared to the average person. Shareholders of company will have more because they just have a lot more money. And I don't think like the best way to fix that necessarily is to like make it so they legally can't, because you fall down all those rabbit holes you guys are talking about with, oh, then you can't sue them. They are not legally obligated for this. So like, I like Yang's idea I heard. Like, what do you think about that? Of where you just give each citizen, let's say like $1,000 that they can donate to particular politicians they like every year and write that off their taxes, where then that would kind of like undercut the corporation's influence without necessarily making them illegal to invest themselves.
Not necessarily, because a corporation could spend an incredible amount of money advertising, right? One candidate, and right, and saying like, well, give your Yang bucks to this person, right? So that person still has an advantage, right? That's a possibility. So there
are already limits on campaign contributions.
No, but like, this is a different situation about what he's talking about.
Right. What you're talking about is expenditures and election communications. And what I have argued and Destiny just said was, how do you differentiate an independent journalist who's organized under a corporation who's trying to put out information about his preferred candidate and Walmart? Is it by? It's not easy to draw that line in terms of constitutional or a principled line. It just seems a policy-driven line. And that
because if we were going. Yeah, because if we were talking about like reporting requirements, like basically all of my streams leading up to any election should be illegal. If we were to get rid of Citizens United, because I'm essentially doing an in-kind like donation to these campaigns by running, like how many times have I said positive things about Bernie Sanders? How many times have I said positive things about Biden? Like these are campaign like advertisements just as much as any of their.
You can draw limitations though, right? Like, I mean, that in itself, I see what you're saying. The problem you're talking about, Stephen, this is not the first time we've discussed this. Me and Pisco have argued about this many times before, buddy, right? But we argued on exactly this point. But you can say, okay, Twitch streams are a thing that you can do, right? We can draw distinctions. We understand that there's a gray line, but we can draw a bright line somewhere if we wanted to, right?
So you're right. You could draw. We have to draw lines in all parts of our life. So I'm not against line drawing in that sense. But the reason why it's difficult in the context of a constitutional right like the First Amendment is we've just decided as a society that we don't want the government drawing lines with respect to speech, because for whatever reason we consider speech to be different. And so when we put in the federal government control over without having to pass a constitutional amendment or constitutional provision of like, new Congress, now we can change totally who's allowed to have election communications.
We feel that's speech all the time. We that we do.
Go ahead.
Let me go real quick. All right, I'll give a good argument against, or I give my best argument against Citizens United. Okay, so speech, right? It's important. It influences people, and the Supreme Court basically said, okay, it's fine to have this. It won't distort the political process because the public is going to be able to see where the money's coming from. And there is the Citizens United loophole, right, that creates the super PACs. It says nonprofits can spend unlimited amounts of money. And what happens is you have these random companies pop up, Freedom for America, whatever generic name, paid for this campaign. No one actually knows. The whole point of Citizens United was, yes, you could spend money, right? A corporation did have the power to spend money on whatever candidate, but the reasoning behind it is written in the Supreme Court reasoning statement they put out. It was like, oh yeah, it's fine because people will know where the message is coming from.
Are you a lawyer? That's I don't think you're.
I'm reading the Supreme Court reasoning right here, from the judge. It was a 5-4.
I mean, no. I mean, the judges recognized, I think, that this could have distortive effects, but all speech can have distortive effects.
Would not distort the political process, because the public would be able to see paying for ads, and it would give proper weight to the different speakers and messages. End quote. That's from the judges. It was 5-4 decision.
The problem was,
let me finish. My last point. The top 100 donors of super PACs, right, spent $2.9 billion. That's 78% of all super PAC spending. I don't know what rich people are spending $2.9 billion. And it's true what Destiny's saying about it's kind of hard to see a correlation between political ads and how it affects, the average voter. But in my opinion, I don't know why someone would spend so much money for what? Just for free speech? What is the counter argument to that? Why are rich people so concentrated spending billions of dollars in basically nonprofit organizations that you can't tie to anybody for candidates? I don't know.
Super PACs existed before Citizens United, and that was in fact.
But it allowed them to.
And it was bad then.
Not disclose who's actually. So they created these nonprofits that people don't know who's behind them. People don't know who's funding it.
I don't know what you're. So the thing with Citizens United was commingling of corporate revenue with super PACs.
The loophole created by Citizens United is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking
loophole.
Basically, it allows nonprofits to be created.
Non-profits?
And you don't have. Yes, that's how it allows nonprofits.
Corporations themselves have the right to have election expenditures.
Yes, but nonprofits popped up because nonprofits, you don't have to disclose the individual investors, okay? The individual people running it. So that's where you get the Freedom for America. You don't know who the fuck is behind Freedom for America, right?
There was a
That's the
loophole
whole
for
point.
nonprofits in the law already. So I don't know why you're saying Citizens United changed anything.
Because now Citizens United allows those nonprofits to spend ad infinitum, right, and any amount of money. Do you understand what I'm saying? It created a loophole in the nonprofit law that already existed. Because now these nonprofits prop up out of nowhere, and you can see the data. Thousands of these nonprofits appeared out of nowhere immediately after Citizens United that gave a segue for the political class, elite, whatever you want to call it, the billionaires, to give money. I'm a capitalist, okay? So whatever. I don't necessarily have the biggest, panties in a bunch about this, but I'm just giving an argument against Political United or Citizens United for that reason. Who's spending? Why are these top 100 donors make up 78% of them spending $3 billion for no reason? Explain that to me.
Pisco, can I ask you a question? Why would that be relevant, though?
Why would what be relevant?
So asking, like, why are they spending their money on this specifically? If the goal of the court isn't necessarily to determine what's
because the argument is, do they have an overwhelming? Do they have more power, right, than the average individual? You could, and maybe I would argue, maybe they do deserve the more power because they're more responsible for human capital, every kind of capital. Okay, but I'm just kind of putting that out there.
Okay,
so as far as the anonymity of it and the unlimited spending,
I was asking in terms of the Supreme Court making their decision. Why would that be relevant?
Well, I mean, they explicitly said that they did not believe the compelling purpose of preventing vast accumulations of capital overrode the First Amendment rights of the corporation. So I don't know what's going on here. And also, the question
the
of
reasoning was because they knew who it was coming from, but then the nonprofits created. So
what's the analysis at issue? What's a legal analysis? I mean, the legal analysis is one of strict scrutiny. It's one of
the judge said you're right. The judge said yes, that it would not distort the political process because people would know where the money's coming from, right? And then the nonprofits appeared because now you don't have to disclose who's.
You're giving like a byproduct. This wasn't the material reason why this statement was made. You're giving like a byproduct of what a judge might have said.
That's my argument against Citizens United. I'm not necessarily saying that corporations should not be allowed to.
Citizens United was not ruled that way because the judges said, well, we're going to rule this way so that people know where the money is coming from. It has to do with the First Amendment rights that you have to contribute to an organization and not restrict that just because you're coming up in an election, essentially.
So the difference is the dicta and the holding, right? The holding is what's the rationale of the decision. Something that like Justice Kennedy said on the side isn't like legal law or anything. They're just being like, we don't suspect this will cause problems because we think blah, 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 blah. That's not the basis of the decision. That's just him responding to something the dissent probably said.
Sure. So then I would ask Bisco, if they believed that corruption how do I put this?
The consequences is what I'm saying.
Sure. So if there was like that large of a risk of corruption, would they even still have the ability, on the basis of their current judicial philosophy, to not stay consistent with freedom of speech in that aspect? Like, is that even relevant?
Is the amount of quote unquote corruption probably would be relevant to certain people with respect to an analysis of how compelling the purpose is. The law is in a really weird place right now where, you would think that direct campaign financing, direct expenditure related to politicians themselves would be preferable to this kind of thing, because at least politicians would be held accountable for all their donors. So I agree that the state of the law is kind of in a weird place where, I would prefer that these campaigns get their money directly from corporations. But in terms of the analysis, I think essentially the court said we cannot predict, we cannot say that the influence of quote unquote accumulations of capital, accumulations of money is so much to overcome the right of these corporations' First Amendment rights. That's essentially the analysis.
How would you even quantify that in comparison to like the value of free speech?
It's hard. That's why they don't want to draw that line.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Hey, if anyone can donate, like, hey, why not? Foreign countries, you can also donate to our elections now. Why not? Fuck it. All rules off.
Well, no. There is a compelling purpose for foreign aid, and there's laws against foreign contributions. The courts have found that there is a compelling purpose there. Whether or not you think that compelling purpose makes sense to you, maybe it doesn't.
Well, hold on. Wait, to be clear, there is no compelling purpose because the First Amendment doesn't protect foreign non-U.S. citizens.
Exactly.
So,
But there is, because if you're a non-citizen and you come into the United States and you're in the United States, and remember, so the supposed rationale of Citizens United is that we can't distinguish on speech based on the entity speaking. You would think that a non-citizen in the United States would have their First Amendment rights respected, but in fact, they don't.
It depends on your non-citizen status, right? Though, what rights you're afforded. I don't believe every non-citizen in the United States is afforded.
Well, depend on federal law, but as a constitutional matter, it would seem clear that the United States Congress would be free to take everyone's non-citizens' right away from for speaking, which seems weird. I mean, you say in Citizens United that doesn't matter who the entity is, we're respecting freedom of speech for everyone, but then you deny the right to non-citizens in the United States. That seems weird. I don't agree with that.
Pisco, are you seriously arguing for foreign governments being able to donate money?
I don't think he's
foreign groups.
No, I think there is a compelling purpose to prevent those groups from.
Okay.
But
we're not going that bridge deep.
Being allowed to as well, though, right?
What's that?
I think you could make compelling arguments on both sides. I think I probably fall for no foreign government contribution, but the United States is involved in the affairs of a lot of other countries in the world, and maybe sometimes it might feel like them having no representation in our government does feel pretty shitty when our policies have direct impacts on them. I wouldn't necessarily buy into that argument. I think I stand that foreign contributions shouldn't be allowed, but I mean, like, the United States policy is worldwide, right?
Oh yeah, we're hypocritical.
But the ones fucked
sure.
over by U.S. policy and the ones who would be able to donate are like on complete opposite ends.
But what about American companies with foreign?
Oh, what? Sorry.
I mean, it would be ridiculous to assert that foreign actors don't have a voice in U.S. politics already anyway. So any extension of that's going to mean that you're going to get you might be able to get some of the sort of the people who are actually hurt to get a voice rather than just the people who have a shit ton of money and are connected through various business interests to American politicians.
Should there be a cap on the amount of money a corporation can spend? Maybe is a more interesting way to look at it. Or should it? Because right, that's.
Well, that's
not with supers.
Well, that's the
I know there's a cap for correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a cap for
for direct donations,
campaign contributions from corporations and entities, right?
Yes, for direct donations there's a limit, but for supers it's infinite.
Right. Well, I did not hear any of that.
If a nonprofit popped up and they wanted to advocate against climate change, should we restrict how much money they're allowed to spend advertising for that cause or funding that cause?
They should disclose. I think there should be more transparency in the terms of campaign finance.
Yeah, you should not be able to spend infinite money that is untraceable.
You can spend infinite money if we know where it's coming from. That's my take on it.
Yeah. So that's the crux of the issue. It is not the spending of money that the max amount that you can spend as a person or as a corporation via super PACs or even just McDonald's running an ad. They can do that. They don't have to use a super PAC. They don't have to do that, but they do that because it's a way to just clean the money and you don't look like McDonald's is running the ad. But the issue is the transparency.
I don't think anyone in here that's pro Citizens United, the ruling, Pisco might be. I don't think I would have any problem with a disclosure being required.
And that's the issue. That it's not the issue is that there's unlimited spending that is not transparent. It's not that there is unlimited spending.
I don't know enough about the election laws to know what the state of the law is, but I wouldn't be against having,
the election laws are kind of a joke because I think the SEC or whoever
the SEC.
Federal Election Commission doesn't have a quorum at the moment because Donald Trump didn't appoint enough people to the board. I think.
Oh, that is true. Actually, yeah. Trump did do that, which is really shitty. I mean, it's one of the list of things that Trump did as part of a procedural coup. But yeah, no, it's a good point to bring out. You had a question?
Yeah. So, wouldn't the distinction be that you'd have because I know Dre is specifically referring to the way that nonprofits will engage and then spend money on advertising. So, would the distinction or the regulation have to be altered to the way that a nonprofit functions, or just for specific?
So the state of the law. So the law at issue in Citizens United excluded nonprofits and it excluded media companies. So that's why there weren't these lawsuits for the media companies because they were excluded by the federal law. But of course, the Constitution supersedes that. And so what the nonprofit, it was a nonprofit at issue in Citizens United too, but they were specifically taking corporate funds to try to set up a test case, essentially, to go to the Supreme Court. So the distinction is one that's easy to draw in federal law, but it's hard to draw in constitutional law. And that's kind of the problem. As with respect to the disclosure requirements, there's a separate analysis, I think, for what the government can do with respect to disclosure requirements. I don't know it. There is some of that talk in Citizens United. But I think you can have certain disclosure requirements, but I mean, certain companies were saying, no, this is a restriction on free speech that goes too far. So actually, I'm not sure. It might be banned. I'm not sure what to say.
I would assume there'd be a bunch of test cases for that as well, right? Like, or like at least firms trying to.
There's a lot of test cases for almost everything.
I know, but for that specific, like the fact that that's happening, right? Like, and I don't know. I don't know if that one actually would get through. That's a difficult one. Yeah.
I mean, that's
so
the other.
Like my main problem with all this campaign contributions or lobbies, or why I'm against money being put into the government in ways like this by corporations. And please, somebody shut me up, prove me wrong, or change my mind. Is one, I think it's not. I don't care about the corporations or like the thing, but I don't think that it's fair regarding like the disparity with like you have like hyper big corporations and then say like smaller corporations or small businesses like mine, small co-op, and like how much clout are we going to have with local government compared to somebody with like a chain or some like giant
like Disney buys out the Anaheim government.
Like is this fucking like can we allow this to happen morally and ethically? Like, is that a thing? Like, or like, because it doesn't seem like ethically or morally okay to have these big people be able to sway votes or sway local governments, and in the long run sway our government, like the big one as a whole, in comparison to like say the amount of say I would have with my local government or the big government as a whole.
Samantha, I hear your concern. I hear your concern. I think it's a legitimate one, but keep in mind a couple things. One is I think politicians do care about people. I mean, think about what happened with all the the election.
I'm going to say no on that.
No, I think it's true. I mean, look at
some don't, right?
The hoops that were jumped through with respect to Trump's trying to stay close to the hang on to the presidency, right? That was a move that was universally sort of condemned by like most corporations in this country.
Condemning a coup is like the baseline
but
for
nonetheless,
caring about people.
Okay, but what I'm saying is nonetheless, politicians paid lip service to those kind of talks. And in fact, even after the attempted coup had happened, showing that in fact, corporations don't have this monopolistic control over
Look at Trump's tariffs.
There you go.
Trump's tariffs, all forms of tariffs, absolutely hated by any business except for maybe local businesses, I guess. Generally nobody likes tariffs because they're bad for a number of reasons. But still, when it's politically popular, a lot of politicians will try to pass them. At the end of the day, all a politician's goal is just to get reelected. Like that's what they're looking for at the end of the day.
Okay, and so what are the tools that help them get reelected?
People voting. Well, more specifically in the U.S., people not voting are usually what gets.
Okay, sure, great. Well, how do we convince people?
I think we have a people problem, honestly, in this country right now. We have I'm more worried about the polity than corporate influence in elections.
The voter participation.
Yeah.
If you wanted to see the biggest top-down change, if you wanted to enact one policy in the United States that would forever change the composition of both the government and the government's policies, it would be to institute mandatory voting.
Yeah,
it would be.
I know.
Yep. Yeah. Nothing to do with corporate finance. Nothing to do with lobbying. None of that bullshit. It would literally just be mandatory voting.
Okay.
Here's something that
hold on 1 second. I want to hear from you, Sansol. Sure. There's a mandatory voting meme. We've done this. God, we've done this fucking argument so many goddamn times here. But first of all, how big a change that would be, I'm not entirely sure. And we'd still run into the same problem of people maybe voting uninformed, or people simply being swayed easily by money, right? So
there'd be a way bigger vested interest in informing those people because now they're voting one way or another. So you're going to make an effort to get out to those voters, or whoever does is going to be the one that gets elected. I think
the markets are saturated anyway.
How do you do that? But hold on 1 second, please. Well, how do you do that? How you saying the person who gets out to those voters? Okay, how does that happen? What are the mechanics of that? Sure, there could be people power, like as I understand it, what you and our boy Polar did out in Georgia, right? Institute people power. That's great, right? But what's more likely?
Stop reporting on national politics. There you go. Boom. Easy.
Stop reporting on national politics? Seriously?
Okay, most of the things that people cry. Most of the things that people cry about.
They say socialists are unrealistic.
So most of the things that people cry about are actually can only be solved at your city level. Okay, if you're out there screaming about ACAB or screaming about police violence or blah 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 blah, and you don't know who your mayor is, your complaints mean nothing. You actually should just never ever talk about it ever. You should stop complaining about the police.
That's a bit of an overstatement.
No, it is 100% accurate. It's 100% because if you go online and you complain about police activity and you don't know who your mayor is or you didn't vote in your local election, you actually don't give a fuck. You don't care about it.
What is it, Stephen? Hold on, Stephen. Hold on. Please, Stephen. What is it?
You have a problem?
Oh, come on, please. I really want to have this back and forth, Stephen. What is this argumentation? Why are you tossing this out? ACAP, right? Like we're not even talking about that, but you just toss this out. Yes, I agree. Local governments should be prioritized. Good work, right? Yes, we had a woman here before who was talking all about that. That's exactly what you do. Hey, everyone, get involved in your local politics.
Wait, I'm not trying to get like praise for myself. That's not what I'm after.
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. Well, you said good work, so I don't know if you
No. I'm sorry. I meant like good work in general. We solved it, but like not that. No, my point is that we're talking about money in politics. That's the heart of this matter: money in politics and how it gets there and what its effects are, right? And so, like throwing out ACAB, I don't know where that came from, but whatever, right?
You were asking me how to get people to like care about issues and change things in the United States, and what do we do? And I said stop reporting on national level things. And
we were focusing on finance and electioneering.
Well, I mean, we can talk about those topics in particular. I'm just saying that like your focus needs to be on the local level if you want to enact like real change. That's like the thing that needs to change in the United States instead of the obsession with more sexy issues at the national level that you have much less say over.
Okay, I agree.
Sure.
I agree. Local politics is the most important thing. Like it has the most influence on your life. You will not get any argument from me. Great. But we can still argue and understand that money has a corrosive influence on the local, state, and federal level, right? This is a thing.
No.
State
does it?
You don't think?
I don't think so.
You don't think?
Again, Disney literally owns the Anaheim City Council.
I'm still waiting to hear if we can do this morally and ethically. I'm still fucking waiting.
There was some big study by, I want to say it was Giles and some other name, but I don't know, that was floated around for a while as evidence of like corruption of corporations buying elections or whatever. And this study has been like thoroughly reviewed and debunked multiple times. Socialism Done Left actually does a really good video on this. The idea that corporations or corporate interest is represented in our policies more than like average voter interest has never been borne out ever in any data ever. And we can even see like really clear examples of it not necessarily working. Look at the Democratic primary. Not to copy his slogan too much, but Biden, like the poorest man in Congress for 40 years, beat two other billionaires that were running against him. Bloomberg spent how much in advertising? Steyer spent how much in advertising?
Did he not?
Well, this is oversimplification.
Famously anti-corporate Biden.
We're mixing a lot of different things here. All right. One, I know there's a study talking about, and I'm sorry, I was not prepared for this. If I could look for this study, I would, but I'm sorry, I just don't have it. But a study talking about that, like, if you look at like the results of elections, at least from the congressional level, the U.S. congressional level, right? That the wishes of people who aren't in the 1% are almost completely ignored.
You're right. Ignored. I know I remember exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
The biggest problem with that study,
sure.
Okay, we're going to get electorally blackpilled. That study was correct. Corporate interest is more likely to be represented than an individual American's interest.
Yeah.
But the reason why is because the individual American doesn't vote. If instead you were to look at only 15% of Americans, mainly white, affluent, older Americans, you actually find that their interest is represented pretty well because
the kind that runs corporations.
No, the kind that show up at the polls and vote.
But
because they run corporations.
No, because they take their voting responsibility more seriously than young kids or.
That's right. There isn't voter suppression in America. Go back to sleep.
You know what?
Go
People cried a whole lot about voter suppression. People cried a whole lot about voter suppression. Georgia had 3 times, not 3%, not 30%, 3 times its voter turnout in the 2020 primaries when they were trying to figure out who
they had to work in Georgia. We get it, dude.
Okay. All right. I promise.
This is what I was. Yeah.
I promise.
Nice fucking ad-hoc, Luther. Holy shit.
Holy crap. Everyone, hold on. Knock it off. So Sansol wanted to say something. I want to make sure you got a chance to speak. We'll go back to Polar afterwards. I'm not done with this with Steven. We're not done, but go ahead, Sansol.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask this to Destiny. I've been wanting to message him about it for a while. Do you not think that there's anything that we should do in terms of our election laws in terms of like the finance that goes into it? Like, is there no reforms that need to be done? Because it seems to me like I don't understand why we wouldn't want there to be like way more transparency involved or like any kind of limits. Like it feels weird to me.
It's like asking, like, do you think that there are optimal ways that we could change the diet of an ER patient that was brought in with 6 gunshots to the chest, right? Like, yeah, there are things that we could change with our transparency laws and our finance or whatever, but it is so far removed from the actual problems plaguing our democracy. It's just an easy scapegoat because people don't want to take responsibility for what actually runs our democracy, which is the voters.
And party politics. I mean, you talk about how much money plays a role in politics. I think more saturated in these races that we've had recently are some of the most highly funded races, and it's because we have a nationalized party system now, which just funnels money into these very competitive races. And it really isn't a problem of corporate money in here because there's tons of party money in there already. So I think people need to show the causality there. Why is the corporate money specifically the problem?
So we have politicians submitting legislation literally written by corporations.
Yes, that's different. I think it's different.
Is it different?
That's not always bad, though.
Hold on. Okay. Well, okay. Well, first of all, okay, I agree with you. I'm going to agree with you right there. That's could technically be morally neutral.
So
you could possibly have
though.
I agree, but it could be technically morally neutral. A corporation could, right, in theory, talking about let's raise the wages of our workers, right? Let's unpollute the waters that we usually do. Like, yeah,
no, it's not about just moral issues. It might be something about, like, for instance, it's so funny because people will say, we'll all go on like Comedy Central and we'll watch like Jon Stewart make fun of. Remember the internet is tubes? Or am I showing my age?
Yeah. No, I didn't
right. No, this is probably an area where a lobbyist could have provided a much better framework or structure for some of these Congress people to argue these issues, right? Like, hey, well, maybe with some language from a corporation or a company that actually knows what they're talking about, right? Maybe. Now, that's not to say that it's always positive. I'm sure there are plenty of negative insertions of political language.
Yeah, let AT&T write our internet laws.
There's a lot, yeah. There's a lot. And the backdooring is, I think, the bigger problem of corporate. The fact that politicians are being influenced by corporations after the fact, I think, is a bigger problem than the campaign. Why does the banking industry give to politicians? Hold on, Stephen. Why does the banking industry give to politicians? What's their goal? What's happening there?
So my favorite explanation of lobbying is companies lobby because they want to provide epistemic resources to politicians to make the case that they think the voters would want anyway. So basically, your goal, if you lobby a politician, is you might look at some city in Texas and you might say, like, hey, I bet these motherfuckers would really love to buy our heaters now. I'm going to go talk to this politician, okay? And I'm going to make sure you know exactly what our fucking heaters do. These things will work even if it's 20 degrees outside. These are the best heaters ever. And I'm going to go to you because I think your fucking constituents would love it. I'm going to help you with the language. I'm going to help you with the legislation. I'm going to give you like the wording for the tax credit so that it qualifies for our WB, whatever, our output heaters. Like, that's the type of tools that I think generally lobbyists seek to provide to politicians.
Okay,
so on the flip side, people try to argue that a lobbyist will come in and like flip a politician's stance on something. You cannot find any issue where this actually happens.
Okay.
Aside from like very, very, very niche ones.
Why? Okay. So first of all, no, I'm closer to you on that last point, right? That they wouldn't just simply flip a politician's stances because the politicians they support already support the things they want, right? Like, they're not like going into fucking AOC's office, right? And like, we're looking to pollute, right? Let's just toss some money at them, right? So yeah, we get that. Yeah, sure. They don't automatically flip, but they influence what they do, right? So they're providing material support for that politician to get reelected, right? And then after that, hey, this is a bit of legislation that I want, right? Hey, this is a bit of deregulation that would benefit me. That would help my business grow. That would, it's standing in the way of competition or whatever the fuck, right? And they do it. We've seen this. You already know this, and it's not your contention, but we've seen politicians, like, what was it? Michelle Bachmann like submitted something like straight from ALEC, like they didn't like even take off like the headline. I think you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
So that's the thing that happens, right? So we know that they give money, these corporations, right, and then they get favorable legislation. Now, you've already admitted that much, Stephen, right? Like in terms of like the heaters or whatever the fuck, right? But that's something that sounds innocuous. Let's step it up. Why do banking corporations give to politicians? What are they getting out of it?
The same thing.
They're getting the same thing.
Well,
Yes.
yeah.
But we have a system, right? We have a financial system where it's been highly deregulated, and people have been hurt. Okay,
Subprime.
great. So can Stephen, do you recognize that's a bad thing?
You can't draw a straight line from that to the financial crisis.
1 second. Hold on. 1 second. Stephen.
I mean, it depends on which regulation you talk about. I would agree that our financial sector is suffering from under-regulation at the moment, probably regarding
great.
something.
So, do you think that banks, right, submitting money to politicians who have rolled back some those regulations, and I know there's a myriad of regulations, I'm not going to ask you which one is which, right? But rolling back those, that might have contributed to that problem.
Not if it wouldn't have been electorally popular first.
Electorally popular. How many people were begging for banks to be deregulated?
Subprime mortgage. No, but it's a little delinked from that, right? So people were, for years, right? They've been pushed this narrative of you have to own a home, and there was this push to deregulate certain securities and deregulate the housing industry so more people could get into homes. It's all sort of this big chain. It involves people and it involves corporations, and it's not tiable to any one entity, and it involves foreign investments as well, who created a global savings glut. I mean, there's tons of links in this chain about deregulation.
I think my favorite example, because people point to banks, an easy one that we all kind of understand intuitively, that's actually probably not true, but the one that everybody says they understand is net neutrality, right? A lot of people say net neutrality, that's an easy slam dunk issue, like that we should definitely be pro net neutrality, but that's not really the case. If you actually step outside your Twitter bubbles and you go and talk to Republicans in real life, there's a lot of people that are really scared about the government stepping in and having any say whatsoever over the internet. It doesn't take evil corporate lobbyists to make it so that net neutrality isn't a thing. Literally half the population are Republicans.
Okay, Destiny, or Stephen, 30%. Want to talk? Your name is. So I'm getting hype. So what part of the electorate? Is for deregulating food safety? What part of the electorate was begging for that?
It depends on what you mean by food safety. This is the problem. The problem is that you'll take like a highly
less inspectors. We literally have less inspectors within.
I can get let me. This is just one way. This is one wriggling. What? No, the problem is you're taking highly complicated issues and you're trying to boil them down into the soundbite that works best for your party. So for you, food regulation and safety, that might be something that sounds good on your end, but on the other end, it might be in certain climates you're not allowed to have poultry.
I didn't ask that. I just gave you an example of saying there's literally food inspectors within factories, right? Looking to see like if safety measures.
But I'm saying the other side is voting.
Inspection, right? Who was asking for less inspection? When was that electorally?
The other side is not looking at it that way, though. They're not saying like I want my food to be less safe. They're saying I want less red tape or less bureaucratic structure. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, because regulations do harm. So I know that people here might hate to hear it. Regulations do disproportionately harm small businesses. That doesn't mean all regulations are bad, but they absolutely do harm small businesses. And larger entities can absorb the cost of those regulations far easier than smaller businesses.
We're not talking.
Samantha, who runs a food business, may have something interesting to say here.
Dr. K, hold on. I'm really working on this, so please hold on. All right, let me try. Now I might be hanging myself here, but let me try. All right. So God damn it, you're like fucking up my train of thought. Please do not interrupt me. All right. You keep bringing in unrelated topics, right? Not completely unrelated, but like you're moving the goalposts here, talking about small business. I'm not talking about small business. I'm talking about big agriculture here, right? Like clearly that's what I'm talking about. If that wasn't clear before, then let me say it. I'm talking about big agriculture, right? Taking away like literally, and this happened. I want to say I saw a report either last year or 2019 on exactly this, saying that there are less inspectors within, I believe it was pork manufacturing or pork factories, right? So again, who was for that? No one's for that, right?
So what he's explaining with the small business...
I know what he's explaining. He says, like, there's a general idea, right, that regulations are a problem, that they are hurt. Who does that benefit, though? Who has spent years telling the public, right, that regulations are bad, right? Who's been saying that? Like, what party?
I mean, regulations impose a cost on the customer at the end that they generally have to pay for. It can come in the form of lower wages. It can come in the form of some businesses becoming non-competitive. Regulations have costs. Now, to be clear, just to be super clear, I'm not arguing against all regulations. I think a lot of regulations are really fucking important. I personally like the FDA. Okay, but I mean, like FDA's the regulations that are imposed necessarily almost impose a cost on customers, impose a cost on corporations that could lower wages or make things.
I agree. Yes.
Okay, well then, if you agree, then don't just say like, who is against our food being safer? Well, that's just one end of.
No. But that's an important. That's an important thing.
Bullshit,
that's important. That's an important thing. That's an important point, though, right? So yes, regulations have different effects on different industries in different ways. Great, amazing, right? Like, what an amazing point, Destiny. But like, we can understand that there are harmful deregulatory laws, right? Harmful deregulatory moves, and that benefits no one but a corporation. There is no electoral push, right? There is no popular movement, right, to have less food safety inspectors. That's not a thing, right?
Okay, here's a quick question. Super easy quick question. Okay, do you want people to die in car accidents? No. Okay. We need to make it federally mandatory that every single car gets a 5-star head-on and side collision rating. Otherwise, why would you want people to die in car accidents? Why would you want cars to less safe?
Wonderful straw man. Constantly. You're fighting straw men all the time here, literally, and not actually dealing with the subject at hand. It's just like, this is amazing.
Real quick, I want to respond to Prime with the thing. So, like, from what I'm saying, like, I'm just gonna go by the example of thing and how it hurts people and like intention behind. Just Prime's example with the food inspectors, right? So cool. The corporate lobbyists just wanted to fucking get rid of people that they had to pay money to, saving them money, right? In the long run by getting rid of inspectors off their floor, right? Cool. Now, in the long run, that's going to hurt more than it benefits anything, except for those corporates, because now with lack of inspection, say that part comes into my fucking business, and I can get some bad shit, and now I'm passing that on to customers, and then we have some fucking weird E. coli or whatever fucking food sickness outbreak because there was less inspectors. Like, so in the long run, you're doing more harm and costing more money than just the money you saved this corporation from having to fire 2 people off the floor.
Sure, maybe, but that long run. Okay. But you might be ready to do the order. Okay, you say you run food or whatever, right?
Yeah, I own multiple businesses in multiple countries. So
if you own multiple businesses, okay, that's great. Okay, I used to be a supervisor in a restaurant. I used to do the orders for the restaurant. So one of the things that you look at, of course. So one of the things you look at is when you go to order a product, right? The cost of these products are very important. Products that might be more closely inspected or have more regulations around them might exceed the whatever acceptable profit margin you have to sell a certain good to a customer. So I'm not saying that food inspectors are bad. I'm just saying there's 2 sides to this. It might be that the amount of regulation necessary to make some food products safe makes it prohibitively expensive to serve your customers. So you are harmed there. We can't sell that anymore. Sorry.
But at the same time, you understand by working the food business, you are willing to pay a little bit more because the disparities. It's not that much more when it comes down to it. It is knocking the profit margin down as a whole, but it's not that much more, right? You are willing to pay more for a product that is safe to feed to your customers because that is going to prevent you from having to pay more money in a lawsuit.
You always accept some level of risk, especially in food service and cars and everything in life. You accept some level of risk. We just have to argue over what the acceptable level of risk is, right?
I mean, I think good regulations would minimize that risk as much as possible.
But we're not arguing about the merits of regulation. That's what I think the problem is with some of Prime's questioning is it's conflating, I think, the merits of regulation, which, I'm with Prime. I think that most of the deregulations by Trump were disastrous. But the question really was centered around how is this sold to the average person?
I think particularly his argument was like, who in the, like when Destiny was bringing up, they're going off these, or the lobbyists are going off these regulations based off of like what they think the constituents in that area would be like. What kind of fucking constituents would vote be like, I would really like my food to be less safe.
Okay, but
here's an example. I can give you a really clear food example.
The fucking point that he was bringing up in the first fucking place. This is what Pisco was trying to fucking angle towards, and this is like literally how I don't know. Like I said earlier, I'm a fucking dumbass, but this is how I think fucking politics should be done. It's to do with engaging the fucking electorate, right? And the electorate have been engaged, and they have either been convinced or they may already even hold the value, right? That like government intervention bad, right? So like less government intervention good, right? And when fucking like Rush Limbaugh gets on the fucking radio and starts whining about like how
they believe it,
government's coming in to like deal with your chickens, like he can rile up enough people to fucking vote against that. It's not that they're going, I want to vote for less safe chicken. It's they're going, I want to vote for like, less government intervention.
And Trump would boast about it in rallies. We've cut tons and tons of business destroying regulations to cheer. clear. I mean, and so I agree with you that the thought process, the consumers are irrational. They're not taking into account the externalities of the regulations that protect them. I agree with the irrationality of being in favor of that, but they are in favor of that. It's reflective somewhat of constituencies. Although I disagree.
And sometimes real specific to the food service thing, like people will actually advertise, we have unsafe meat, come eat here, right? How many people jerk off the ability to eat fresh burgers instead of frozen burgers? It'd probably be safer to freeze the meat. Exactly.
The majority.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. You're saying people prefer frozen burgers over fresh burgers?
No,
exactly.
The unsafe meat thing.
Fresh meat is probably going to be less safe to store and transport and serve to customers than just freezing it instantly, because frozen meat doesn't grow bacteria. But more people prefer the unsafe alternative. They prefer the fresher meat rather than something that's been frozen right as soon as it was slaughtered and then sent to a restaurant to serve. But like that's just one example of people choosing consciously. Like, yeah, I understand fresh meat might carry some more risk, but the chase is way better than frozen burgers, so I'm going to go with that. And even fast food restaurants have had. I think even McDonald's serves. I don't know if they still freeze their patties, but like it's tons of fast food to serving fresh meat. That's a clear example right there of them choosing a less safe option.
Okay.
Meat in 2020.
Although be clear, I mean, I don't know the extent to which Destiny thinks that politicians' actions are perfectly explained by their constituents or the democracy. I disagree with that. I think politicians, like regular people, are irrational. They have their own ideas too, so it's not just democracy.
So yes, sure, great. But let's talk about this, right? This is the crux of your argument, saying that like it's not simply that a corporation pays 1-to-1, right? Like we do understand there is a movement, right, within our nation, right, that says that regulations are bad. They're like, it's a ton of people here, right? Like they have a general sense that regulations are bad and cutting them makes things better somehow, right? We understand this. Great. But why do they think that? Where did this idea come from? Did this idea spring forth when they were growing up as little kids? Like, those dirty regulations holding back the economy, right? Where did this idea come from?
A lot of intellectuals,
right? You've got like
Austrians.
You've got like conservative fucking talk radio. You've got fucking Fox.
Yeah.
You've got the amount of fucking money that goes into controlling the media landscape from the GOP, especially around the Reagan era, like when this all fucking changed and went national, and they got rid of the what was it, the fucking fairness policy, which I also don't really agree with, by the way, because it has its own fucking problems.
Yeah.
But it did spawn like a shitload of like right wing.
Who pays for all of that? All the things that Vivian's talking about. Who pays for all that? Who puts these ideas within the general stream of consciousness? Right? We understand that someone is getting something out of this. Correct? Right?
Some people believe. I mean,
that these we have institutes.
Like what's incentive structure?
Hold on. Let's do this. Okay. We have institutes, right? Think tanks, right? That come up with all these policies, but where's their funding coming from? Right? Like we can look at these things. The answers are all the same to every single one of these questions.
That's not true. They're not all the same. Look at the existence of the catalytic converter, okay? Mm-hmm. These are things that uniformly harm the performance of every single car that they're on. But why do they exist? Because they make the environment better. Right? That's an example right there. And I'm sure I could think of a million more things.
I know there are good regulations. Yes, I'm not saying all regulations are bad regulations or that corporations have complete and utter and total control of all our politicians. No, I'm saying that they have an effect. I'm saying they can have a corrosive effect, that they can institute either regulations that harmful regulations that benefit them or deregulate regulations that benefit us. Right? Like
Prime. I'm addressing your point right now. Sure. So addressing your point, you know what else has a corrosive effect on people's speech and thoughts and ideas?
More than one thing. Yes, I know.
Dumb people posting on Facebook.
More than one thing.
Who are dumb, spreading ideas, who are not at all connected. Right? So everything is causally linked in the big link of causes.
I never.
And how do you identify?
I never said. I
know you didn't say there was one, but you have to. What constitutes an invalid or a corrupt cause?
So this is what I hate by your argumentation, Pisco, because we've done this before. We've done this plenty of times before, right? You're like, well, because you can't find a direct causal link between one thing or another, right? Because you can't.
That's not what I said.
No. Here's what you think. Here's what you do. Because I've been down this road with you often. And first of all, let me make it clear to the audience. I fucking love Pisco. He's my man, right? But we just argue like cats and dogs. You do this thing where it's like, well, yeah, there are multiple multiple issues here, right? And we can't pick out any single one of them, right? And so obviously we can't blame any of these things. No, that's
not precisely what.
We can understand that corporations contribute to this environment, to bad outcomes, right? Good. So I'm simply acknowledging that and saying that's a problem.
You don't know that by virtue of the fact that they're corporations who are promoting an idea. You have to have something more than that.
Pisco, listen, I get that, you're lawyer brained and you have to have the exact specifics for everything. But like, if you actually look at the incentive structures that exist for corporations, right, they're entirely incentivized to make profit. And part of what can help them make profit is getting policy that is beneficial to them.
How do you think workers are incentivized? How do you think workers are incentivized?
Workers are incentivized to make money as well, yeah, but they don't have fucking the money and the resources necessary to, lobby in the way corporations do.
They did unions were one of the biggest lobbyists in
how
the
much
history
money?
of the United States.
All right, AFL-CIO is the biggest union. How much money does it have compared to the largest corporation?
They have waned in recent decades. They were
all right,
going
even
down
at its
steadily.
height. And besides, I live in the present, right? Like, I'm living in the present. I want to analyze the present, not what happened 50 years ago.
But you can't just put a label on something based on the category and say, well, all union lobbying is something and all corporate lobbying is something else. What if the corporations are right about some things, right? You don't know just by discounting it and saying it's corporate thought. That's an excuse.
Yeah, I'm not going to disregard and say like they're always wrong, but they have an incentive structure that incentivizes bad behavior, and
does everything else. Everyone is not everyone, but I think, or maybe everyone, depending on your view of
but
free will.
Your average Joe doesn't have the resources to act on that.
It's about like who the corporation, like where corporate interest lies, right? And it's usually not in the welfare of their workers. It's usually in the name of like making as much profit
maximization.
as possible.
Okay, but
right?
think about workers.
As much profit as possible is directly on. It's like
think about workers in the coal industry. Think about workers in fossil fuel industries, right?
All right,
these workers, right? We all agree that climate change and pollution is a huge problem that needs to be confronted head on. Yet these workers still maintain that they should get, in some cases, subsidies. In terms of agricultural workers, they should get export subsidies. Why should we listen to the workers in these fields when they're obviously self-motivated and producing a net debilitating economic activity?
We shouldn't.
Okay, but because not all workers have the incentive to make things worse for everyone, right? Corporations have an incentive to maximize profit, right? Not every fucking worker has an incentive to maximize the amount of coal we put into the environment, right?
They want to maximize their outcomes.
Yeah, but and we can do that for them.
And in fact, many workers within even coal mining unions are pushing instead for like the transference, understanding that their field is innately unsustainable.
Really? I mean,
yes.
I don't think that you can't just rely on workers or corporations to do the work that you want to do to minimize externalities. That work has to come from government, and I don't think you can draw a convincing line that separates corrupt influence as opposed to corporations. Then like a line that would include things like the Democratic Party or the Republican Party.
We brought up the AFL-CIO earlier. They don't support the Green New Deal, right? Like,
right, but that's because they haven't considered the implications of what could be done. Like, we could have offered, like, if we wanted to stop fracking in Pennsylvania as an example, we could have offered them a jobs guarantee to, like, and the government could be employing those same people, right, and in their same jobs that they're currently paying with better security than they currently have to cap the wells.
Sure, I think
why should we do that?
The problem is that well, so wait,
to stop an oil, we have to stop there's no incentive for the corporations to do it. They're just going to leave them abandoned, right? And the federal government.
The problem is that we look at like corporation interest bad, labor interest good, and that's just not the case. The reality is that corporations lobby for themselves to maximize the amount of profit they make, which they should, and labor unions should advertise for themselves to maximize the amount of money that they can extract from a corporation, which they should. Both of these. Neither of these parties necessarily represent the good of the American people.
Right.
In fact, there are times where they can be opposed in such ways that labor interest is actually against the American people. Yes. So, for instance, for a long time, the largest and cheapest solar plant in the entire world, I believe, in Southern California was not allowed to be turned on because they could not reach agreements with the fossil fuel unions down here, which is actively hurting everybody in LA. Now, but yeah, I'm just saying that labor unions aren't always good for everybody, and corporations aren't always bad for everybody. They represent their own interests, and they should both have power to do so. Right?
But would you not say though that the majority of profiteering as a incentive structure, creates a majority net bad though?
Of course not. What do you mean? How could you even?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
Wait, what do you mean? Like, how is that? Like, how is that? How could you quantify that?
Well, no, the answer is because it's hard to imagine a company that just creates a huge net bad that somehow still exists in society.
Right, right. But the other time is that
BP sitting here like, what am I even doing, right?
BP. Wait, do you know what the fuck gas is? What a
British
stupid
Petroleum, I
fucking
know.
comment. Wait, what the? I don't understand. Wait, what the fuck?
All right, you want me to say Shell?
Don't make us all
Shell destiny.
Wait, why the fuck would you cite like fucking like fossil fuels or
Be
whatever?
nice.
Like, well, who benefits from that? As I sit in my heated fucking house with my fucking. Like,
wait, explain it. Explain it to us. Why was it a dumb example? Yeah.
It's a dumb example because you're going by one negative externality of a company and saying that somehow makes every single thing that company does a net drag on society. Clearly, the majority of civilization doesn't think that fossil fuels is a net drag, seeing as how we all use fossil fuels to heat our fucking homes.
Hold
and
on.
live
Yeah, we're
lifestyles that
trying
go
to
the other way.
transition away from them.
Sure. Like, I don't think BP was the best example, but Stephen, right? We can recognize that we all simply don't have the ability to switch over to green energy right this moment, right? It's not like fossil fuels haven't had.
Could make
it's not like fossil fuels haven't had decades and decades to build infrastructure, right?
If we were willing to sacrifice a lot of our lifestyle, we absolutely could make bigger conversions to things like veganism or things like fossil fuels or away from fossil fuels. The reality, you can scratch your head all you want. The reality is that it's easy to say on Twitter, I want green energy, but it's a lot harder when somebody says, if you want green energy, that's fine. You can only run your computer for 4 hours a day.
I agree. First of all,
Shell actively works against the transition.
Sorry. Okay, holy crap. Destiny, hold on. First of all, like, okay, all right, Destiny, here's the thing, right? You know, here's the problem. No, Steven, you're fucking driving me insane here, right? We've never actually gotten into an argument before. I've never experienced the magic, but like, I'm a bit disappointed, is what I'm saying, because you've been disappointed with running from me this entire goddamn time, throwing out straw man left and right, no matter what.
First of all, I haven't used to run out a single straw man. I'm not running for any point.
And so, look, this might be a bad idea, and I might come to regret this. I am challenging you to a debate. We're going to do this.
After this weekend. I'm not going to do it on a panel with 20
No.
Steven, pistols at high noon.
No, stop. I'm saying that, like, yes, we can't do it here because people keep interrupting us and you're hiding behind
because there's a 12-person panel, not a one-on-one panel.
I agree with you, Steven. I agree with you.
I'll leave if you want.
Hold on. Dr. K, just don't interrupt me. That's all I need you to do. Okay. This is exactly the problem, Steven. I understand that. I'm saying later on, you and me, one-on-one, mano a mano, you can't hide behind Pisco and let him do all the heavy lifting for you here, right? Let's do it. Like, because if this is the best you could got, then I'm going to kick your ass. So I'm letting you know, right? So do you accept one-on-one?
Yeah, this sounds.
He already said yes.
Oh, you said yes?
Yeah,
of course. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay, all right, there we go. We're doing it. All right.
Well, right, I gotta hop off anyway. Thanks for letting me come on.
Sure.
Right, I'd also like to ask Destiny a question because Prime brought this up earlier, and I thought it was a good point. Destiny, even though you like concede that banks or like corporations have a significant influence on like Congress or whatnot, would you not say there is a net negative to society that such vital assets to our society, such as the banking industry, has influence on our legislation, and it may cause an incentive for these vital industries to become reckless with practices and possibly hurt the rest of the society?
Okay, all I'm trying to say is that those negative things are not intrinsic to corporate lobbying. It could be the case that they do, absolutely. But it could also be the reverse. Something that Pisco was talking about earlier that I don't know what he really engaged with. The idea to drive up home ownership, that was a very sexy, highly political point that the American population loved because of our cancerous obsession with owning property. The idea that everybody should be able to have a house was a pretty big lead up into some of the deregulation that happened leading up to the 2008 crisis, right? Like that's an example of like a political motive coming from the people that is corrupting. There could be corporate corrupting influences as well, but there could also be checks as well. I'm just saying it's not intrinsic to one party.
I don't think would be shit because of the idea that everybody should own the house, or like because of the way the financial system is set up, so they created this fucking.
It was multiple causes. I mean,
tons of different causes.
Whoa!
So one was like we had a
structures.
You had a ton of foreign money, right?
Yeah. No,
you had a ton of foreign money in the United States that wanted to have revenue, and the investors wanted more and more securities to invest in. So that was one cause for deregulating. Another was deregulating the housing industry directly by making it easier for people to get loans. Another was not overseeing credit rating agencies and not overseeing any of these complex securities that went into the corrupt, like sort of blow up of the financial industry. So there was a lot of different causes. It's hard to just say one particular industry is at fault. Insurance was another big problem. So again, these grand narratives, I think, really do us harm. These are complicated worlds and we live in a complicated world that we live in. And it's not answerable by reference to one word or one sentence.
But no one was saying that. That's the show. I'm sorry, pull it. Sorry, go ahead, pull it.
So we could also make this same complaint, like, why should banks or any of the financial sector be able to have any form of lobbying or like any ability to advocate for their positions? Anyone remember when coronavirus was initially happening and the Fed was out here giving like really low interest loans and people were complaining the fuck about how we could use this money on like student debt, right? And people just have a fundamental misunderstanding of what's actually even going on in that industry in the first place. So this is just like to say that they shouldn't is like the amount of information that it even requires to understand like what's actually going on here just supports the grand narrative and how misleading that can initially be.
Oh, Polo, that's such a good example too, because I'm someone, I want Biden to forgive all my student debt because I have a lot of it, right? But I know that
Me too, dude. I'm about to pay $60K a year, okay? I understand that position.
But I know that, if I had to pick the society maximizing spending of money, then maybe that wouldn't be the best return on investment to give it to me. Although I still think it might be a good idea to do a little bit of it.
Student loan debt is actually one of the best examples of how corrupting the influence can be of a citizen voting. Like, wait, am I going to vote on whether or not to forgive my debt? Hell yeah. Am I going to make more money than like 80% of people in this country that could do better than me or could do better with money than me?
For the economy, though.
But why wouldn't you?
Anytime you pump a whole bunch of money into the economy with no strings attached,
you're not pumping any money into the
Dr. K, that's also
you're removing.
But Dr. K, even during our current time, that's a pretty bad fucking form of stimulus as well.
Yeah, but no, it's a great.
I don't know. I think it's okay because
life and in the prime time for starting a family, for buying a house, right? And it costs us nothing. We're just ripping up T-bills. Like it literally doesn't cost us anything. We don't have to print any more money or anything else. Like it's literally just like forgiving the debt is like is essentially free.
I think Dustin's a little exaggerated on this.
How is it?
There's no such thing as a free lunch.
Wait,
I mean, like you would have to take that on his debt, right?
And it's opportunity cost, right? It's money that you could have spent somewhere else.
Yeah, this is wrong on an economic level, and it's wrong on a political capital level as well. Like if you're
not wrong on an economic level. Like right now, we're holding treasury bills. We already gave the cash to the banks when you took your loan and we put it in your account and you paid your university. So we're holding treasury bills, right? And like that's what when you pay your bills off, we scratch those things off the record. That's it. We just shut them up.
Yeah, but you're essentially talking about circulating like money back into the. This is an MMT take, isn't it? Are you an MMTer?
No, this is. I mean, it's probably a Keynesian take, if anything. But like
a Keynesian take is that debt that the United States' government has borrowed against itself could just be destroyed with no actual low cost whatsoever. I don't think that's a Keynesian.
There's no such thing as a free lunch.
No. It's not actually free, but it's not going to increase our debt any. We're going to be forgiving.
It would. No, it would because
listen, we're going to be stopping future revenue.
Wait, the government gets money when I pay them back.
How does that handle at the level of the treasury?
Hang on. The government makes money on people taking out loans.
Understood.
Okay, so that's money that you're otherwise not getting, right? And that's money. There's an opportunity cost, right? If the most productive and the most revenue returning thing is to invest in everyone's education or to get a really good healthcare system, then it's the immoral action to do the least revenue generating activity, right? Or the least societal net good generating activity. But to Destiny's, I think his criticism is a bit exaggerated because right now we could use any stimulus, and I think Joe Biden should just get rid of $60,000 worth of debt. It's just an easy way for him to stimulate the economy since the other kinds of relief aren't forthcoming.
Biden's leaving us high and dry. He ain't gonna give a shit.
Listen, okay, wow. There's a lot of misinformation that's going around when it comes to like debt in the economy. For example, like that's just not like I can't tell Pisco if you're memeing or not. Is that like
What's
how
that?
much debt that you have? Do you actually have? Are you just memeing about having 60K? Or is that?
Oh, I have way more than 60K.
Okay, well, I would say that you could probably use that money in a much more effective way, especially when the majority of people unemployed don't even hold a degree. So like it's like 70%.
Pisco, I thought you were memeing. Wait, do you think that the best use of money from the federal government would be to forgive your?
No, No, but
okay.
But I don't think that the government is not in a position to do what's the most maximizing thing anyway. So they might as well do something that's half that. And
well, sure, but if we had some political capital to expend on some, I don't know how
then
many
you
trillions
would spend it differently. On
a 2 trillion stimulus to like working class Americans would be so much better than.
But if you put a gun to my head, Destiny, in Prime as well, because this is directed to you, and you asked me to vote for Biden or Biden 2.0, and Biden 2.0 is promising 200K relief, and Biden 1.0 is promising 10K, I might, take society to the,
peace go the ego. Okay, it's dude. Peace go the ego.
Sorry.
Right here.
Okay. So, all right. Anyway.
I wouldn't be proud of it.
Okay. Connor, you had something you wanted to say. Also, I think you had your hand up at some point. No, nothing. But you do it very tentatively. You have tentative hands up, and I don't know if you ever want
I'll
me to
work
call
on that.
you. But go ahead, Connor. And then if No Nothing wants to say something, I'd love to hear from Connor.
I guess I was gonna bring it back to the the super PAC thing, etc. I was wondering, I don't know the law exactly, or the constitution in this regard, but isn't there some way to put limits on the amount of money you can actually spend in election periods? So, for example, in New Zealand, there is limits that both political parties and third parties can actually spend on advertising.
No, you would probably have to change. You would have to change our First Amendment, I think, to get around that.
Okay,
it's exceedingly difficult to get around Citizens United, especially now. Trump got 3 Supreme Court appointees. If you remember the Citizens United case, it was all on party lines. And so you would expect a lot of the same conservatives who were in the majority in that case are still there. So you're not going to really see a change in the law, barring a constitutional amendment or...
a change in the interpretation of the law from the Supreme Court. Or change in the law would require Congress, which won't ever happen for an amendment.
So to bring it back to student loans, because why the fuck not? I have no idea why this is some, why for some reason the prevailing view is, or at least online, it's... either no student or no college is free, or we just leave it status quo, because here we have interest free loans for university, and it works perfectly fine, right? You're borrowing it off to go to university, and then there's no interest as long as you stay in the country and work. If you go overseas, you have to pay interest, but that makes sense, right? You want educated people to stay here, and I don't know why people don't advocate for that in America.
Because it's all virtue signaling. Nobody actually gives a fuck about the issues. They just want to virtue signal for the most extreme policy.
Right now, we don't actually.
What Destiny means is that American universities are really good and they generate good outcomes for their students. So
they're way overly inflated in their costs.
They're not inflated with their costs.
It used to be that much of the cost for public universities was subsidized. And it started during Reagan. You see this sort of push away from the cost being put on the Fed and the state, and instead going to the individual, right? And so the actual cost of university would be about the same, but before, the reason Grandpappy and whoever paid $50 to go to university is because the government and the state was covering the rest of it up until that point. And because now many of our institutions have been essentially defunded horribly, they have to make up for that funding gap from their student body.
But private schools too have who have relied for a long time on other sources.
I don't give a fuck about private schools.
The average amount of money paid for an education has been I think it's risen it's 20%, I think, over the past 30 years. It hasn't gone up anywhere near as much as people say that it has. The reason why people say that it's gone up a lot is because people only look at the published rates. They don't look at the actual net paid for what's going on. There's a lot of price discrimination that goes along with actually pricing out colleges, because there's so much financial aid available, whether it's in the form of Pell Grants or other types of financial aid. If you want to go to college, it's still easily payable. And then if you look at the stats on how long does it take to pay back a college degree? I think it's either lower now or it's roughly the same as it always has been. College degrees.
How much has the individual paid gone up though?
In nominal dollars or in real dollars?
Like in percentage wise.
I think it's gone up significantly, but the services provided by institutions has also gone up significantly.
The problem is that our aggregate contributions have dragged hard, but that's because they're being dragged by the working class. One of the biggest growths of wealth inequality in the United States are driven by college degree holders. Because if you disaggregate college degree holders from working class people, you'll see that wages have actually kept up, and in some places even outpaced productivity. College degrees are huge assets in the United States, almost required to participate in our labor market. It's a $20,000 median difference in net earnings year over year over year.
Yeah, that should not be the case.
It should not be?
Why?
You shouldn't have to have a college degree to have a decent life. No.
Which is great, but when you say college should be free, all you're doing is driving that unequal divide. I know that a lot of people have a hard time understanding.
Here's the thing. When I say college should be free, right? Public university should be free. I'm looking at it from the perspective of the federal government competing amongst other nations and competing for hegemony on a global scale, right? And because the U.S. is deindustrializing, right, we're probably not going to be getting our industrial base back. So how can we ensure, a U.S. which has a smaller manpower, pool than most of the competing hegemons, right? How do we ensure that we stay ahead of them? And that is by investing in our population to ensure that that one U.S. citizen is more productive, has more intellectual use value, and can be, more useful at large than your average, citizen from whatever X opposing hegemon you want to put forward, right?
I totally agree.
And
I agree.
It's extremely important.
And so I'm not looking at it from the case of like my own personal whatever. I don't even give a shit about that. I entirely just want to see continued hegemony, right? That is productive for, the people within a nation state. And so in order to do so, you need to make sure that you have the investments necessary to have a productive nation.
Yeah, that's true. It just comes down to like what is like the best type of investment. And it seems like people can't like when people suggest it like, oh, like maybe education should be free, but it should be scaling based on like who can afford to get in. People like lose their minds for whatever reason. Like if you're going to school to be a law student, no offense, Pisco, and you come out with your law degree and you start practicing law, you don't need any fucking government help to,
it would help,
for your shit. Yeah, fuck you. You're going to be in like the top earners. And so you're like top 2, top 3% guaranteed, depending on what you go to work for.
So hold on.
You don't even have to do it like that.
Not necessarily. What if Pisco becomes a public defender, though, which is something we need more of?
He's a corporate shill. We've already established this.
I want to have this conversation, Prime.
Okay, hold on. I just want to make sure, because I looked away, and I want to make sure I heard Stephen correct, right? Are you saying that it's not worth paying for his loans, Pisco's loans, because he's going to be possibly in a top 1%? 1%. I want to make sure.
Absolutely not. Fuck no. Also, to what Dr. K said, that is a fucking based as fuck take. That repayment could be based on the type of job you go in. Maybe we do loan forgiveness for people that go on to become public defenders because they don't earn as much as corporate lawyers.
That's like teachers, right? Teachers. Like,
teachers, 100%.
If you go teaching in a specific area which like needs teachers, rather than like a disprivileged area, right? Like you can say, hey, you work there for I don't know, like 5 years or something, and
your loans
forgive your loan. Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting really personal here.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I will say, my school has one of the most generous loan repayment assistance programs in the country, but it's not nearly as much. It's still worth it for me to go into private practice in terms of net outcome sort of thing.
Okay, Polar, go
or
ahead.
what if they're not going into a production?
Hold on,
Prime, I really want to have this conversation.
Sure, and we will have this conversation. Hold on, I'm just trying to like make sure everyone gets in. Now, I want to understand what Destiny is saying because I'm not quite sure, and I don't want to strawman him like he does. I mean, he's a manufacturer of strawman, as I found out. But go ahead, Polar.
Yeah, I was going to say, so Dr. K, with the example that you provided in comparing ourselves to other nations, so when we think of other nations that have been effectively able to engage in education, the way that they have been able to do them isn't necessarily by like paying off all their college debt. It's been through like providing other educational opportunities and funding those, or engaging in like more effective like educational plans, and then increasing education at like high school. So big one being like Germany and the way that they engage in apprenticeships, and then the cost of their education being not funded through like completely paying it off, from my understanding, but like having
but we need to look at what the economic barriers that exist in the United States are. We aren't looking at the economic barriers in Germany.
What I'm saying is if you want to specifically compare ourselves and and make us engage on the levels that other nations are doing, it's probably important to observe and understand what's working there and what's not working there. That's probably an important point to specifically make. And then there are other issues that already come with, like as Stephen already mentioned, there are other issues that come with those initial barriers, right? Like it's a wealth transfer in and of itself. Like
I'm cool with that wealth transfer.
But like
tuition isn't like the only like blockage in people going to like college or whatever anyway. So like
yes,
I know
not
people
tuition
in my
and
hometown.
not even just like board and fees. It's the opportunity cost of not going into work immediately to help your family, or of just leaving a household, or of not working just for yourself for several years. Yeah, a lot of people can't. A lot of poor. That's why when you make like tuition, like
yeah, we
just
need
free,
other social safety nets. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
To cover those exacerbating factors as well.
So,
the vast majority of debt, or the majority of college debt in the United States, is held by graduate degree earners. Like these aren't the people that need fucking bailouts. Like, and I understand I might be salty. I hate the middle class, okay? And I hate it from both ends. I hate it now because I'm upper class, so fuck middle class. But when I was working class, I also fucking hated the middle class. Like, motherfucker, I'm working fucking 80 hours a week to try to pay my fucking bills, and middle class people are mad because they can afford their third fucking car. Get the fuck out of here. Okay?
That's not most people.
Class to both ends, all right?
They work hard too, all right?
Fuck the middle class.
Okay. We work hard too. I'm going to work.
We only went on 2 vacations last year. We could barely afford our 4th child going to a private high school. Get out of here.
Okay, all right. So you're highly upset. That's cool. Steven, again, because I keep trying to run my channel here, so I keep looking away. But so you're in favor of college for all? I want to understand. Is that?
He doesn't want to give it to rich people.
You don't want to give it to rich people.
If you can afford to pay for it, yeah, pay for it. I just don't like the idea of like taxes coming from a general fund to pay for people at school. That's so weird to me.
So why?
Free public university, and then if you're rich and you want the good treatment, you go to a private and pay for it.
Yeah, so disagree with all this. Why put up barriers? The moment you put up any sort of a bureaucratic barrier, there will inevitably be people who need the services who cannot clear that barrier, right? So if you set the
because the matter is at the end of the day,
if your parents, you could say if your parents make $200,000, right? If your parents make $200,000, then yes, you don't get the free college, right? No, you're good. Except of course if your parents won't actually pay for you, right? Unless you're like, well, son or daughter or non-binary, you have to make it on your own, right? So what happens to that kid? Hold on. I want Steven to answer this. What happens to that kid?
Then fuck them.
Okay, all right. Well, then.
Okay, well, let's go to Prime's argument. Every single person's college education is free, and now the people at the bottom that can't afford to get into good private schools are fucked because the classes are fucking overloaded. The quality of the education decreases because a whole bunch of people, and the people that are most in position, you laugh, but this is exactly what happened in the United Kingdom, and it's one of the best examples of looking at why you can't have free at point of service delivery of all services.
How is it in Germany?
I don't know how it is in Germany, but I'm willing to bet it's probably similar. Free at the point of service just doesn't seem to work that well for education. You should have people that can afford to pay. It makes it easier to fund the system. It keeps the quality of the system high, and you don't have to expend so much political capital fighting over fundraising for things when there are people that can't afford to pay.
You can have, for instance, like Harvard or whatever, right? Like that can stay private, right? You could say like all state universities are free, right? You could do that, right? And then you can do another thing, build more universities, because we did that at one point, right? We invested in our education. We decided like we wanted more engineers, right, for fucking war. So we invested in our education, and we created the state university system, right? So we could do that again, right? We can invest in our kids, right? Create jobs, right? Do all those great things, and have enough so that people, so anyone who wanted a college education could get one. Oh, of course, providing also non-college opportunities, because that's very important.
Sounds like you want some interest-free loans there.
But we could.
Okay.
We could do that. Hold on.
So Prime.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Prime and Destiny. Are you talking about making college affordable for everybody or free for everybody? So there's a difference between somebody's parents saying anything and we should make it totally free at the point of service, right?
I think making it affordable for everyone is good. Well, I agree with. So Kane is saying anyone who wants a college education can get one, sure, but that doesn't mean that everybody needs it paid for. It just we just need to make sure that we're providing this. And there are remedies if you're like in one of those edge cases where you're fucked, where like your parents are really wealthy. Like I was one of those edge cases going to college. My parents had a high gross income but a ton of debt, and they hadn't paid any of my bills since I was fucking 16. So I had to get married to get around that shit. Unironically, when I was 19. So I mean, like there are ways to like get around like those requirements that they exist, but I mean,
why
would you getting married?
But
wait, so that's something worth considering,
that?
right? So wait. So what we actually want is that every single person who is a citizen, or maybe everybody in the country, period, can have access to the education. It's not about making it free; it's about making it accessible, right? Is there anybody who disagrees with
No, it's about being free.
I disagree with that.
Just like a yes or no. Is there
I
anybody
disagree.
Because if it's not free, that is a barrier that stops people.
Wait. Is a barrier versus like is a barrier that you can't overcome?
No, why would you? Because
in fact, college debt cannot even.
I may be able to overcome it. Stephen here might have been able to overcome it, and I'm glad. Oh no, did you go to college? I forget if you did or not. I may be able to cover. He may be able to overcome it, but another person, a third person, may not be able to overcome it.
For example, trans people who have a huge discrimination in employment fields and are like chronically unemployed at 50%.
You took the words right out of my mouth, right? The people who are most likely to not clear those barriers are going to be the underprivileged. They're going to be the underclasses within our society, right? So again, this decision will disproportionately hurt them, and then people like our friend Steven will most likely be able to make it pass. But we could just eliminate this. We could eliminate that, right? And just have it free, right? State colleges, any which way.
Wait. Okay. Just to clarify, so the current situation that we're talking about, that is an edge case that is not functional within the system, is people who are discriminated against getting jobs post college, right? That's the situation.
I didn't bring that up, but that's one edge. That's one.
There are a lot of rationales, though. You could say that it is education is such a rich and profitable area to invest in that we just want to incentivize it to the max. Yes. And when we don't really believe, Destiny, that it's already incentivized to a agreeable degree, and so we just want to make it super duper incentivized because it just has such good outcomes. That's where I stand.
Okay.
Make it free, and even if we're taking a loss on it, right, we're investing in our citizenry so that we can outcompete other nations.
So yes, exactly.
I just don't agree that certain earners are going to be disparaged by a barrier. That just isn't the case. Like whether or not my kid goes to college has nothing to do with the fucking cost or whether it's going to cost $20,000 or $30,000.
I literally am.
That's great.
At one of these edge cases.
First of all, oh my god, there's so much I'm going to respond to you, but like I got to let people in because I don't want to take up all the time. Everyone wants to jump in. All right. What's your name? The dark room, the very dark room up there with your hand up for a long time. What's your name again?
Fab White Boy.
By the way, can I get on the list?
Sorry, I want to say
Fab White Boy.
That White Boy. Okay, sure. Great. You. No, nothing. Did he just leave? Oh well. No, nothing had his hand up. Oh well. So we'll go to you first, and then we'll go to Mark's next. Who hasn't got a chance to speak. Go ahead.
This is just such a small point, but it just always frustrates me when people talk about free college education would cause just classrooms to overfill and inability to give proper educations in the universities. A free education doesn't eliminate that you need to apply or that you need to be able to go or you need to qualify to get into the university. So that's just one big issue that very much is frustrating, is that the idea is that everyone who can get admitted into a public university should not have to pay for it. That's the point. And this idea that if it's free, then suddenly it's going to be thousands upon thousands upon thousands of students are going to flood the gates.
Oh no, the poors are here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the peasants are going to suddenly flood the gates.
So just to bring like a specific like real world example to this. So like Harvard University, in general, if you get in, they have unlimited because they have an unbelievable billions of dollars endowment.
Yeah.
They have a need-based scholarship to cover everybody. If you get in, if you have a need-based requirement, you can go to that university.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not the majority, right?
Get into the university. Why should it not be free? If it's a public university, if a private university who has a freaking humongous endowment that's probably larger than the CSU system is able to give you a free education, why not?
Yeah.
Like, okay, good for.
I don't know if I like the idea of drawing that distinction between public and private schools. That makes me uncomfortable.
But like, why did it touch you?
The distinction is already there.
It makes you uncomfortable.
No, because private schools already.
Wait, no, wait, don't hold on. What, Prime?
Yeah.
Are you in favor of voucher programs for public schools?
Oh boy.
Don't say it.
This is why I don't like. Now I understand why people argue about this. I don't like the distinction between public and private schools because I feel like this leads to a weird world where basically if you're smart and wealthy, I think that education should be the ultimate fucking equalizer. If you can qualify into something, then fucking God bless you. You should be able to do it to the best of your abilities.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable with the distinction between private and public here, to where public is completely free and private is just who can afford it. Because I feel like the segregation of like the very smart and the very wealthy people will all go to the private schools.
Okay,
and then the public
okay.
So you
what
for vouchers?
So we had Pisco and
I'm anti-vouchers.
I can answer your question, Stephen, right? Because Pisco and he doesn't remember this because this is many months ago, right? We had an argument about exactly this, right? Because I think we shouldn't even have private schools.
And private schools,
yes. Yeah, I don't think we should have them at all. I think to solve that problem, that we should have all the wealthy and elite going to the same schools as everyone else, right? So that one, that will provide.
Wait, then why are you okay with public universities being free and private universities?
No. I mean, if they're going to exist, right? If they're going to exist, then I would leave them out.
Okay.
But if not,
he would get rid of Harvard. He would publicize or make it public.
Yeah. We would nationalize it.
Get rid of Harvard.
He would nationalize it.
Seize Harvard. Yes.
Yeah, get rid of Harvard. Who needs it?
Wait, that's bad.
But like we won't do any more government contracts with Harvard or MIT anymore. Like, you know
wait,
what I mean?
Pisco. I have a personal question for Pisco. Does it bother you? This isn't. Oh shit! I don't know like what school you're in. So wait, do you say what school you go to?
I don't. I
okay,
don't.
Fine. This question actually might be.
Say.
I'm sorry, this might be a really mean personal question. I don't mean it to be that, okay? But I have a lot of friends that go to law school, or I have two friends that went to law school, so I hear a lot of talk about this. Does it bother you that the value of your degree, pretty uniquely for law, is so unbelievably fucking contingent on where you went to school?
Yeah, and in fact, my school was able to get like the best firms to come and interview with them, and like they treat you out to dinners and stuff, and it's really, and it's something that, you know, certain schools have and certain schools don't. There's actually a term that applies to the top schools. They're called the T14. And if you're out of that, you're like sort of not considered a quote national school, and the opportunities become much more local.
Yep, that's what happened to me.
For example, this same principle still applies to like top liberal arts schools as well. Like unlike for STEM, like if you get a liberal arts education, depending on the school that you go to, the earnings that you're gonna get massive, vary massively. Whether you go to like a regular public university or like Harvard,
that's a little idiosyncratic of grad school.
It depends on the field we're talking to.
Yeah, I mean, law school is particular. Law school is particularly kind of like that. Where
because like for law school, it's literally like because you don't have anything to show for it. Like because if we're talking liberal arts, if we talk about like literally arts, like I went to school for music. What school or what performance I want to do? If I want to advertise for some orchestra, if I want to
how good you are,
like, I've got to do an audition. I can't just say, hey, I graduated from here. I graduated from Juilliard. I graduated from Berkeley School of Music. Let me in. Whereas if you're a lawyer, that degree in and of itself is so fucking valuable.
One exception.
A lot of like things that people would consider liberal arts where it really does fucking matter where you went to university. At least over here, like you'd consider like history, for example. You have a lot more opportunities and a lot more recognition if you go to somewhere like Oxford or Cambridge than you would going to the school that I went to. Even though my school is like fifth in the country, I think. But
I would say that like I know I don't care if I talk about this. I know that I'm going for an undergrad in econ, and depending on the school that you go to, the firms that'll come to you are very different. Or like the finance
for
firms
undergrad.
Yeah, I don't want to specifically say the school, but I know schools that like have like that Goldman Sachs will like directly go to, Charles Schwab will directly go to, like that seems to be a somewhat common thing.
So our boy Polar here, Stephen, I'm sure you've already figured out is a very intelligent.
For the record,
man.
I'm not comfortable referring to him as our boy, but go ahead.
Okay, fuck you, fuck you. Anyway,
wait, what's that supposed to mean? I'm so confused.
That was like reverse racist.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yikes.
My 17-year-old boy Polar, all right, is a very intelligent young man, guy I admire quite a lot, actually, right? And I think his potential is infinite, right? If he was in a specific financial situation, right, in which he had access to go to some elite school, but then couldn't afford it and couldn't get some sort of program to pay for it, you would say just fuck it, that his potential doesn't get to be fully realized? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think anybody that could go to school should be able to.
Oh,
that literally happened to me.
That's not what not what you said. Yeah, no, Dr. K, it did happen here.
What do you mean that's not what I said?
Well, because
Destiny was calling out the the elitism at law school. I think.
No, that was
criticizing
that. Yeah, but this is before. That was one thing. This is before. Talking about paying for school, right? You were saying that like it's okay that there's these gaps, right? That you can put these administrative walls up.
I'm just saying that like I'm dealing in like we can talk about the idealized world. In the idealized world, there is not a single student that doesn't get to go to school because they can't afford it. That's the world that we should aim for. And now I'm talking about like steps we take to get there. It seems like making all education free at the point of service isn't the best way to deliver those outcomes. Now, the most common case I'm familiar with, or the one case that I'm the most familiar with, is in the UK schooling system. They used to have education, like I think completely free at the point of service. They would even cover room and board. And then over the last, I think 20 years, they've rolled that back to introduce a lot of price discrimination. And all of the outcomes of that have been positive. The equity for the education, lower class people being able to get an education, the quality of the education, like all of it increased.
No, that's not
It's been so they introduced tuition fees, right? Where they said you could charge up to like I think it's £9,000 a year. But functionally, what ended up happening is that because you could charge up to £9,000 a year, every school for every single fucking course charges £9,000 a year, and all it is like a burden of student debt of like people who go to university. Like there's no discrimination, but like everybody ends up.
No, because the fees paid by the lower income students are different though.
What? No.
And
everybody pays like £9,000 a year for their undergrad. Everybody comes out with like 27,000. There might be a few minor examples that you might be able to pull out of a hat and say, oh well, this college only charges like 3,000 or something. But like broadly, pretty much every university course in the United Kingdom costs you 9,000 a year.
Okay, I would have to go back and look into it. The biggest takeaways that I knew is that it used to be fee free, and then when they started to slowly change it over time, all of the outcomes related to this increased. Like this is something that is very easily Googleable. My understanding is that the net fees paid though for the lowest income students were lower than the net fees paid by the highest income students. Maybe that's not the case.
Maybe for like maybe if you factor in things like dorm rooms and accommodation, all that sort of stuff, maybe because like obviously.
Aren't we talking out of our asses, all of us? We're not like school. I mean, there are probably people who are like very, very smart about this.
I don't know. I've been to university in the United Kingdom. I'll tell you, I'm telling you, like I pay 27. Sorry, I have. I have more than 27,000.
Well, Destiny made a large claim.
27,000 in student debt just for my undergrad, right?
Well, Destiny made an even larger claim than that, which I'm surprised no one has called him on, which is prove that UK has better outcomes now in education. I mean, he says it, but I don't know.
I don't know what better outcomes in education compared to where they were before is, I believe.
In what sense? So, what's your metric?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the metrics that I was aware of was the quality of education, so the particular outcomes related to the scoring that the students had, and then the equity in the education, meaning the availability of the education throughout the classes.
You're talking about undergrad, though, right? I mean,
yes.
Or this.
I believe. Well, I don't know if it applies to all of it.
Undergrad's perfectly good.
No, but there's uniform testing in undergrad.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to challenge whether or not any testing is a valid metric, I mean, I don't think the testing massively changed. I mean,
is there a test? I mean, I went to college. I don't know anything about British schools, but I went to college, and your testing is a reflection of your major and what you're studying. So how can
at least for my history degree, there was uniform testing. Everybody fucking sits in a hall. Everybody fucking like fills out the same paper.
In college or in uni?
Actually,
in university, although like
I didn't know that.
Americans call college and shit. Like you can't do an undergrad at college over here.
So Destiny was right. There is a uniform
very different in the US. Actually, we didn't have like just one standard exam.
So so there's some people who've been waiting to talk. Revolt Rise, and then good friend Adam Jesus, please.
Like I just, because we've gone through so many things, like I just want to jump on like a couple quick ones. Like number one, like there's a return on investment that it happens because the people that get college educations have better outcomes in employment and pay better taxes or higher taxes back to the government like over the course of their career. And so like there's some, like that's an angle to look at as far as paying for schools. Number two, like we used to pay for schools by funding the schools directly. In the 70s, we stopped that because of the stagflation crisis, and like that's roughly like when we started making students pay the tuition. But we did it by also mandating that the federal government government would back the loans so they could have access to the loans. But there's kind of an inefficient system. There's a lot of people that get excluded from it. But like the overall point that I think is like the biggest as far as like college debt and like who pays for it is concerned is that there's a finite window in an average person's life where they buy most of the stuff that they're going to buy. They buy a house, they buy a car, they buy a refrigerator, they buy a TV, they buy, a picket fence and a dog. And like those things, if you miss that timing window, right? The amount of money that those people are going to spend over the course of their career or over the course of their life is actually going to be significantly decreased. And there's a bunch of studies that show this. So why are we trying to limit these people that we're getting, like college educated people that are like at marriage and kids starting and family starting lifetime, right? Why are we going to saddle them with debt and not make it as easy as possible for them to enter our economy?
Because the reason why they're doing it, the reason why all of that stuff is happening is because of feminism.
Okay, but actually answer it though.
Unironically, the actual reason why we're delaying like putting off families and all that is because women are attaining college degrees at higher rates than men are these days. In terms of like settling down and starting families and buying your first house and all of that, all of this is like very closely tied in with relationship dynamics in the United States. It sounds like a meme, but unironically, yeah, that's actually the case.
You're right. That's a factor, but also like economic disparity is why people are putting off, right?
So that's not new.
And it's a contributing factor of the woman having to go and get a job, and that other part, they both have college debt, right?
So what do you reckon, Destiny? Roll back feminism?
I got so many things I'd recommend. My recommendation would be to get away from the hyper fixation that we have in the United States of having to live on the East or West Coast. You could very easily get any fucking degree you want and have a wonderful fucking house in some part of the United States that isn't Seattle, Portland, Miami, San Francisco, LA. Like you don't have to be in one of the 7 largest fucking cities in the world in order to exist.
Look, the jealousy from those,
there's no jobs.
I'm just saying, it's funny that somebody will sit and cry about like, oh my God, like I can't afford anything. This is crazy. And it's like, well, what are you looking at? Well, there's a loft for $2,500 a month that I was looking at in downtown LA, and I can't afford it. It's like you could literally get like
Starbucks and not $2,500. That's so cheap.
But the jealousy from the peasants and the flyover
no, they
country
are hiring. That's not true.
And flyover country is immense here. Okay, I get it, right? No, we understand it. We have all the best stuff. You're jealous of it, right? We have the glamour, we have the glitz, and you have.
You've got the homeless people. You've got. I was going to say the drug problems, but I guess in the Midwest we have a lot of that shit.
Yeah, but okay. Venom Jesus has been waiting. Venom Jesus, who got a haircut. Like it looks like you got a haircut. Did you get a haircut, buddy?
Yeah, he's
You're breaking up a bit. I'm sorry. Say it again.
I said I did get it for the first time in I don't know how long.
Okay. Yeah, looking handsome, buddy.
Hey, thank you, Prime. You're looking awesome as well. So yeah. I wanted to just mention some things. I have no real prescriptions for how the U.S. should handle its shit because I don't know. But like on the idea that public university and that having a system in which public university and private university coexist, and that this necessarily necessitates a situation where the best and brightest will go to private universities and the poorer and the poorer, less educated will be relegated to second-class education or less quality education and less prestigious education. I just wanted to mention that this idea is just like not necessarily something that will follow. I'm not saying that it can follow, it can't happen, but it doesn't necessarily happen because it's not how it happen here in my country of Brazil, right? Here, and you can check this out if you want to. Public universities are actually the most prestigious schools on the country. Public universities have a 70% rate of people of lower income. And by lower income, I mean 1,400 reais, which on the exchange rate is probably about $300, $400 or so a month. So we're talking about very, very, very impoverished people, right? And these are the majority of people in public universities here. But I will not be remiss not to mention the fact that like here the system isn't also the system that like Primecayes was advocating for either. Like we do have private universities that you can't pay for, and in order to get into the public universities, you have to pass a national exam. And in order to avoid the situation where people who can afford private tutors will immediately get in, while people who can't and people who have jobs cannot, we have also quotas, right? We have a 50% quota for people of lower income in public universities, and this system has been molding itself over the years. For over 20 years now, it's been molding, and it has been shown improvement over it. There is a funding issue. And of course, the quality of our universities won't be as high as generally the universities of the US. But I see little evidence that it has to do with its public nature, and I see it more being a question of funding and the capital that is invested onto these universities. So this idea, I would just assuage the minds of people who believe that you cannot have a duality of private and public without the private winning over in prestige and overall quality. Also, there is also government systems that give private grants to people of lower incomes, like the FIES system. So that it's a plurality of approaches and tactics to make sure that people of lower incomes can actually have higher education.
I don't think, I don't know if that was directed at me or not, but I don't necessarily disagree that that could be the case. So for instance, somebody brought up earlier that if you qualify into Harvard, the financial aid is there for you if you do it. Like, I think it's possible that you could have a two-tiered system to do that. But when we're in terms of like speaking idealistically, if only private institutions charged and then public institutions were all free, if those loans or grants disappeared for the private institutions because the public ones are now free, that would be a bad thing. But I do agree that you can have that duopoly exist, as it does seem to in some parts of the world at least. Or you say it does in Brazil, and I know for some places in the US it's like that. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Wow, so many conclusions. Corporations are people.
So many conclusions. Oh, also as a quick add-on, because it sounded like I was talking on my ass earlier, so I had to look up the exact figures.
Oh, God.
So in the United Kingdom, so there are means-tested maintenance grants that are allowed for education in the UK up to 3,250 quid per. I don't know if it's a semester or per year. And then also the interest rate on your loans are income contingent as well. So there are like benefits there for being in a lower earning class.
Depending on how much you earn afterwards, depends like how much you not how much you have to pay back, but like how much interest you pay and whether you have to pay it back at all. You don't have to pay anything back until you're earning more than I think 21,000 a year.
21,000 quid per year. Yep.
But Disney, I had a question, because this whole conversation like started off of like Biden forgiving student loan debt instead of like COVID. So obviously you should deal with COVID first, because it's the most pressing issue. But besides that, what would you like, or what do you think Biden should do?
He wants zero.
Country?
He doesn't want any. He don't want any
forgiveness
of student loans.
No, I don't think any fuck student loan forget. Well,
no,
if you wanted,
I didn't ask that. My question my question was, what would you like Biden to like accomplish one of his policies besides COVID?
Stuff related to working class people is like the stuff that I think needs the most. So number one would be, I think, healthcare. So some sort of investment into healthcare to make sure that that access exists for working class or lower. I don't want to say lower class, working class, or what. Wait, do we say lower class, middle class, upper class?
It depends on if you want a Marxist analysis, you want just working class is fine. It gets
well, I don't want a Marxist analysis because working class includes fuckers like Pisco, okay? I'm specifically talking about okay, I'll say the lowest two quintiles of society. The lowest two quintile earners of society is who I would want things targeted for. So maybe an expansion of stuff like unemployment or food stamps or, WIC or free education, like childcare services or whatever. Like, I think that's the type of stuff that I want to see way more funding go into before college debt loan forgiveness.
Okay, I agree. So would you do you agree with like Biden's like single sort of like single payers? I don't know what to call it, but Biden's
I don't think it's single payer.
Yeah, it's not single payer, but yeah, some sort. I think he did he float the public option? I don't know if he said that or not, but
I think
some form of universal healthcare. Everybody in the United States should have access to healthcare without finances
access. There we go, right there.
Biden's plan specifically. At one point, I may mess this up. But initially, it was public option, but he expanded that a little bit by talking about the expansion of the ACA to expand to everyone who's making under a specific income limit. But that was like the general policy that may completely change.
Okay, so
when it gets to being written,
Destiny, we already have everyone here already has access to healthcare. Access to healthcare, yes. You can go to a fucking emergency and you have fucking access to healthcare.
When I say access to healthcare, I mean access to be able to pay for healthcare in a reasonable manner, not going to the emergency room and getting a huge bill that makes you file bankruptcy.
Okay.
Yeah,
but again, once you do that, there inevitably will be someone who will not be able to pay, right? Like there's like if you have to pay, then there's someone who will fall below that threshold and will not be able to pay, and then will not get the services they need.
Okay,
right?
and if we only push for a universal system that doesn't get popular, then all the working class people that would have been on that scaling system are now completely fucked because we decided to virtue signal over putting a good policy.
Okay,
so now you're bringing in popularity?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
So he's
wait, popularity. Okay, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay, my mistake. I would be in favor of every single thing in society being free. Okay, that's my idealistic position. Okay, now I don't think anybody should have to pay for anything. That's my idealistic
Destiny.
position.
He's talking about the merits of the policy as it works in real world. Just discount the factor that
So
you.
the single payer
intuit.
healthcare that was proposed for the United States would have been the most extreme left healthcare program in the entire world, bar none. So that is politically unfeasible in the United States. So when I consider the policy, I have to consider the political feasibility of it. If we could actually pass it, and it would, I mean, yeah, that'd be way better than what we have now. Almost anything is better than the atrocity of a healthcare system we have now.
Okay, so
you agree that if it were feasible and popular, you would support Medicare for all, wouldn't you?
Single payer over multi-payer? I tried to look up in Europe which one was better, and it seems they're comparable. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it. If we had the popular support to pass it in Congress, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd take it.
It seems like public option just does a better job with the constant spending of healthcare. Yeah, that's the main concern. Like a lot of
market does good. Like the market does some things well. We can't deny that, even if we don't like capitalism. But like the market does things well, and single payer, the way Bernie was setting it up, or M4A is set up, is it lets the market do the things that it does well.
Yeah, no, but the way Bernie was setting it up, though, like didn't allow for like private insurers, right? Which was something that I
private doctors, private hospitals, private, you know what I mean, like everything else.
Yeah, but like there's a concern
like nothing private, and I think there ought to be like
Why?
private sector.
Why?
Because
Wait, that's not true
this
at
is
all.
my
That's
anti-leftist take.
Very not true.
Wait, what's not true?
Wait. So what Bernie and like Warren also were pushing for was not having private insurance, but that's very different from not having private like health providers. Those are totally different.
Yeah, that's yeah.
We
already moved on from college entirely.
If you have private health,
no, bring it up. Just scream it, and somebody will bite.
Hell yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
Johnny, before you go on, first of all, thank you for being here, Johnny. Love you so much. But let's let Viv finish her point, and then I'd love to hear what you have to say, Johnny.
Thank you. The problem with having like private healthcare providers without having private insurance is that like some people will, private insurance like allows a way in for some people to pay for private healthcare. And it may be the case, right? As I've said before on this fucking panel, I've had this conversation with Primecayes, that public healthcare as controlled by like governments and states in the United States, right? So it'll be different depending on where you are, will offer different levels of care for different conditions. And for a lot of states, it may be the case that like somebody like me who's trans, for example, is not going to be able to access like public trans healthcare, like not particularly well at all. And if there's no option for me to get insurance so that I can cover the cost of going private, like I'm literally not going to have any access to that healthcare at all. And while it's not the perfect fucking solution, I think that ignoring the fact that there is always going to be healthcare that isn't provided by the public option is a mistake, and it puts people like me in a really fucked up position.
And I've argued against you on this like vehemently before, but you not like you didn't bring up some good points though. But Connor, you have a quick point before I go to Johnny?
Yeah, sorry, I just want to say like private insurance and the like still has a place in like multi places. Like here we have private insurance, right? And there are specific like the way the public healthcare system works. If you have like specific rare like conditions or diseases or whatever, like some of them aren't actually like subsidized or covered under like the public system because it wouldn't be feasible to do that, right? Like there's only so much money that you have in the system, and if you were to cover these specific like very niche rare things that people develop, like it wouldn't work. So in that regard, like it does have a space where
and that's where social safety nets come into play for people who are disabled to a point where like that's sort of leading into a big social safety net for people who are completely disabled, for people who are going to need lifelong care. Like that, I feel like is a separate issue from just private versus public insurance for people who have general healthcare needs.
Sure.
But what I wanted to bring up was actually a question for the panel about how you feel about people getting into college on sports scholarships, because that's always been a really contentious thing in the South, especially. We have such a big football culture, and so many people see their lives either skyrocketed to places they could never have imagined or taken to a point where they literally can't go to college because of sports scholarships.
Just pay them. That's all. I just think you should pay your athletes.
Yeah, me too.
Pay your athletes. Damn, instead of sending them to, like, do you think they should have scholarships on top of
Why
it?
not? I don't see a distinction in terms of merit. Merit is defined by the institution that wants to get you. So if your institution is big on sports, I don't see any principled line to distinguish sports from math.
Yeah, the whole thing needs to be taken away. The whole weird thing that exists with colleges making money off of sports programs, I think that whole thing needs to go away. I think that it just is wildly fucking crazy. If you ever want your mind fucking blown, if you Google highest paid public figures in like the United States, I'm pretty sure like 40 at least states, the highest paid person is your state football coach.
Your flagship football
university.
coach, yeah. And actually, another thing that comes into play is that at something like the flagship university here, which is LSU, the revenue from sports, from football, which is in the millions of dollars, certainly, is not allowed to go to other students' scholarships or certain parts of the university that are not sports related.
Yeah, and also
education is subpar. It's not the same education that other kids get when they go on a football scholarship a lot of times.
Yeah. And
I would also say
that.
So let's let Mark's in. You've been trying to get in. Go ahead, Mark's.
Yeah, and I've heard like multiple arguments against it. So one of the things was that that when you like have sports scholarships, since sports takes like a lot of time away from like your like your education, it incentivizes like a lot of students to go ride or die on like a sports scholarship, saying like, hey, I'm gonna work as hard as I can, I'm going to get in. And when they don't, they're kind of fucked. Like with other scholarships, like with other educational scholarships, if you don't necessarily get that scholarship, you still did good in class, right? But specifically with like sports scholarships, it sort of incentivizes you, at least for some students, to go all in. I would
push back on that a little bit, only because like I understand there might be some people that go in and like take it for granted, get fucked. But I've also heard personal stories where people go in and what happens is they just want to fucking play sports and they don't give a fuck. But because they're there and they have the scholarship, they end up coming out with like an MBA or something that they wouldn't have had normally because it was just a kid that could throw a ball, and now they get a college degree when they go out. So I mean, there are two sides to that.
So I think still, sorry, I was typing out a message, but like I think my I'm not sure if this is Stephen's point, I'm not sure, but like I think part of it is like economic desperation, right? Like so many kids like this is their chance out, right? And so yes, they are fucked if they don't get that sports scholarship. Like then they're not going anywhere, right?
I think to Marx's point though, like they're saying that at the levels that these kids are playing, okay, these are people who are in the upwards of 6'4", 6'7", are the people that I went to school with who got scholarships. These are people who are world-class athletes, and they're competing against all these other world-class athletes. And that structure from a very young age, I think actually, to Marx's point, says that you need to focus entirely on this your entire school career. And so you don't, a lot of people like end up even having the problem where they barely get the grades to get into the college, even with a sports scholarship under this current structure.
I think a really interesting question, Johnny, is what happens if they stop playing sports, if they get injured, that kind of stuff. Also, I think it's really interesting to see a lot of the universities who always talk about how they shouldn't like pay their college like sports players, but it's funny to see their coaches meet up with like D1 athletes, and somehow like the next week their mom grabs a new car, or they have like two to three new $1,000 in their bank account. So
in the South that happens in high school.
Yeah.
In the South that happens all the way into high school. Like they're recruiting from that young of an age.
You know what? You should be able to go right into pro play from high school. There you go. Boom. Fuck colleges.
But one solution, that kind of does happen.
Why not?
Pretty rare now, though.
Wait, no. I could be wrong, but I think in the NFL, don't you have to go through college football to get in? Isn't it like a...
I don't know, but I think that the most recent studies that show that there's like 50% of kids that come out of high school programs having played 4 years have CTE, and like so you might want to get it over with as soon as possible if you're going to try to go pro. It turns out it's really bad for your brain.
CTE.
Yeah, chronic traumatic
traumatic
or whatever it's called.
Okay.
Encephalopathy.
So get rid of college football and just make it high school straight to NFL.
College football only exists because colleges make a fuck ton of money and they don't have to pay the kids. The kids are the ironic part is football players in college actually get the best college education of any of us because they get the first lesson in life that other people will try to fuck you, make money off of you, make fuck tons of money off you. Everyone around you is getting paid, and everybody's got a reason and an argument for why you don't deserve any of it. You might lose your entire fucking career as a D1 athlete, as a senior. You might lose your whole future career to an injury, and the whole time your coach is on a fucking 7-figure salary. Your university is making fucking bank on your games that are being broadcasted, and you might even have a fucking caricature of you in some football game that you're not allowed to make money off of. Although that might have changed like last year because you weren't allowed to. You can't sell merchandise, you can't sell autographs, you can't do anything. That shit is fucking crazy.
What I just heard is that Destiny doesn't want you to enjoy the college football anymore. That's what I just heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
The SEC as a whole is going to actually form a militia and go to your house.
The NCAA football game from EA Sports shouldn't own your likeness for life if you can't get paid for it. Like that's fucking bullshit. Like that was always.
I just want to know what your shitty ass name is. We actually wear armor when you tackle people. I mean,
Wait, hold on. Back up. Is that true? What you just said? Like college football teams own your likeness forever?
It's crazy.
It had been true, and I think they like it was just said. I think it was changed in the last couple of years or whatever, but it was like that for a while.
Okay, so real quick. So that means like if you were playing college football and then you didn't go pro, does that mean that like you couldn't make like a YouTube channel and like use your likeness that way?
You can't do it while you're a college athlete.
It was very problematic. You couldn't do like you couldn't like advertise yourself as like X person basketball player, blah blah blah.
Okay.
I
could just be sports related.
Though, like that's
even restrictions of signing advertisement contracts with like Nike, they were restricted from even doing that as themselves of like just as X player supporting this brand. Like they were not allowed to do that because the colleges owned your likeness as that player, as of this ex football player. But like everyone said, it's changed. But I wouldn't say that it's changed to where you can do whatever you want. That's not true. The likeness they don't own, but like the restrictions on what you can and cannot do is still very much in place.
I think I was getting mixed up because it's more like a like your what is it that precedes you, your reputation. It's like a reputation thing, but I don't think that it's now that I think of it, I don't think that people can have ever really visibly advertised like I went to X college.
So let's go to a Polar and then Altia.
The craziest thing that I've actually heard about like people playing college ball is I don't know if this is like actually legal, but there was this like I think Duke player who dated a specific porn star. I'm not going to say the name, and they wouldn't let them engage in like have sex or ever talk about it publicly for the sake of like branding or something. Like that's pretty fucking crazy, to be honest. Like is that even legal? Like how do you get away with that? Holy fuck.
Wait, there was like a player who was dating a porn star?
A porn star, yeah. And then like basically
you can have behavior contracts. Like you can have that's a legally binding thing that you can have for anyone that does anything. You can have a contract that says you are not allowed to cut cans.
Yeah, but usually when you're on a contract, usually you get paid for it. That's the problem.
Right, true.
Yeah. Right, you sign contracts to get paid.
Right. Yeah. You can sign contracts to get fucking CTE and then die in 5 years after you leave football, apparently.
Or go to jail, yeah. The rest
or jail, yeah.
So
great contract.
Steven, I'm curious, like how do you feel about a UBI? I know this is like a meme topic, but I'm just
I
curious.
don't know. Seems like if it works, it's fine. I just don't know if there's any empirical evidence for it. That's it.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, just on the topic of schools. One thing that's been called for is that remember those like Michelle Obama, like those Obama era policies to where it enforced like stricter health regulations on like public school food. Like, do you guys think that should be repealed? Or do you think
yes, because as a high schooler, that shit was trash. But I know that a lot of kids got fucking obese off of that shit. Okay, not only did I love filling up like a plate of fucking nachos every day when I got to go to class, that shit was terrible for me. So yeah. Probably was probably a good thing.
And it never made it like nutritious. It was like you had to like have it available. It was like they were just problematic policies. It didn't work in actuality. Like just like Polar, I was like in high school during the Obama and elementary. I mean, I remember specifically in elementary school getting like dense sugar cookies with our lunch. Like dense, these things were just bricks of sugar. and then the next year like getting like Ash as a cookie, but you were still getting like shitty pizza for lunch. But because you had the ability to get fruit cocktail, apparently then it's like a balanced meal.
Well, y'all went to what fucking schools y'all
Yeah,
go
they
to?
used to sell soda at my
like
school.
before,
No, we
like
sold
before
soda. No, like,
Obama.
We got
no,
like
like
turkey
you were
fricassee and all that shit.
Like before Obama, like the
Where'd you
best
guys
thing we
go?
had were these like little smiley like circular fries. Like we could just get a whole fucking.
Yes.
fuckload of those.
I have a question. Wait, I have a question for everyone on the panel. Do the older people on the panel remember when they were younger at school? Is that-
Yeah.
do you guys-
Dude, we had fucking food trucks. We had food trucks.
Gravy.
We got fucking
Bruh, I
nachos
heard that
and
like in
chicken from
Texas
food
they
trucks.
have these really huge high schools that are like they have full on paid cafeterias. They have like food trucks, crazy shit like that. Like I went to school with 300 people. We had ashy cookies.
Yeah, it depends on what school I went to. Right. Sometimes we had.
I walked into the burger place in high school. The guy knew my fucking regular order.
Oh wow!
I got served first.
Bro, what the hell?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh god.
What a
I just
flex.
want to ask this because, so in New Zealand and Australia, we have these, how do I say it? They're like handheld pies, right? Like the handheld meat pies. And you can get them at like bakeries, or if you go down to, we call them dairies, but it'd be like a convenience store, right? You can just buy them, right? And they're just something you can have for lunch. You guys don't have that in America, right? This is something of...
We got
that
the
is,
Hot
I don't know what you're talking about.
Hot Pocket.
Handheld
it's
meat
the best
pies?
shit. Like it's...
Yeah,
it's
we
so
have that.
convenient.
It's called a Vidalia
It's
meat
called
pie.
McDonald's. Like, what are you talking
Nah,
about? Like,
It's
Prime-
maybe
oh, sorry.
maybe it's because I'm in Louisiana and that's like where are you from, dude?
Puller.
Back when I was in high school, we had a McDonald's
fine,
right
Alex,
across
go
the
ahead.
street, and I would just go there during lunch sometimes, and it was the best fucking thing ever. I had a
Oh,
car,
God.
I could just sneak across in the back and then just drive across, come back with McDonald's. My friends would pay me to come back with like Big Macs and shit. That was a life. Fucking love that.
Polar, you wanted to say something to me, and then
Yeah,
I
have a
say something.
I have a question. This is going to be a little off topic, Prime, but I know this is
We're
going to
way
make you a little mad.
off
Yeah, Destiny, I have a question. Why you got to hate on Attack on Titan, man? I was waiting in your AMA.
No, stop. What are you doing? Get him out of
I'm
here.
sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. Okay, he hated on Attack on Titan. I had to defend
What?
its honor.
If you think Attack on Titan is
What?
bad, what's a good anime to you? Actually, unironically.
Well, you know,
Literally
seriously,
anything.
Wait. Okay.
Steins
It's
Gate,
so
Monica
easy to hate on
Magica,
Attack on
No,
Titan.
no, don't
I
dodge
want to
this.
know. We got a lot
bad.
happening here, and I want to hear his answer because, first of all, the first episode of Attack on Titan is literally like it encapsulates all the good things that anime has to offer. Like, if you don't like the first episode
was
of
fine.
on Attack on Titan, then anime has nothing for you. Like, it simply has nothing for you. Now, if you don't like anime, sure, okay, then I guess you don't like Attack on Titan. But what are your reasons? Your incorrect reasons, Destiny, for not liking Attack on Titan?
already
Okay,
know them.
I mean, like, if we want to do this, like, okay, first of all, one, there's way too many fucking characters, okay? If I have to watch another fucking, I'm at the episode before the basement. I read a lot of spoilers, okay? But like, if I have to sit through one more fucking episode where I get a whole fucking character's backstory and then they just die immediately the next episode, oh my god! So
Didn't you watch Game of
if you-
Thrones?
I did, and you know what?
Stay
In
on
Game
topic.
of Thrones, they actually spent time fleshing those characters out instead of giving us another archetype, another
Some
trope
of them.
backstory where they're killed instantaneously the next episode. God, I hate that they do that over and over again. So the cast of characters is way too big. Okay, one, as a consequence of that. Number two, the three characters that we actually care about. Okay, Armin, Eren, and Mikasa. After season one, we hardly get any fucking time with them. What the fuck? I want to spend more time with the character. Okay, number three, the pacing and everything of this fucking anime is horrible. It is an awesome concept, but almost every other part of this, like the anime, just fucking falls flat on its fucking face. The only reason I'm still watching is because I just want to see how it ends.
Okay, so first of all, like this not okay. This is terrible. So
It's
pacing,
irrefutable.
So
It's so much of this.
Yeah,
That
right.
means-
And
that
yeah,
means
yeah.
so fucking wrong.
No, so first of all, he says pacing, right? So pacing literally can mean fucking anything, right? That's like a throwaway comment. Sure, right. Well, so this thing about Eren and Mikasa not being able, like, what they're trying to do is expand the world, right? And like I'm part of the manga master race here, so I actually know. Yes, yeah. So I
No
actually know-
spoilers. I'm watching the anime. Fuck off.
I would never do that. Shut up. So obviously,
I'm talking to Destiny here.
Okay.
He doesn't care what spoilers.
Oh, okay. Well, then yeah.
No, don't
then
spoil
do
it,
that.
don't spoil
Please,
it,
no
don't spoil it.
spoilies, please.
Yeah, no spoilers.
But yeah. So I know what's gonna happen, but like they are literally expanding their world, expanding the world. But so
No, that's not true. You're wrong. I'm sorry.
You're,
When you
you're
introduce a
wrong.
character and okay, so here's a question. Okay, you know what? Here you go. You know what? Prove me wrong right now. Okay, and I could be wrong because I haven't watched it. And you can spoil. I don't care if you can have the agreement. Okay, so there was this whole backstory given on
Nothing
season
past
1, I think, where you had this like kid with this bowl cut, who was like part of the military police, who was just like, he seemed like he wanted to be this like really righteous
I know
kid,
what you're talking
right?
about. Yeah.
Did he just like totally? Oh, spoiler alerts, I guess. Did he just get totally fucking randomly killed by the Beast Titan in like the episode that I just saw in season 3? He was one of the people who just ran out and died, right?
Hey, listen, that demonstrates the mortality of this world. Okay,
but that's what I'm
But
saying.
they did,
How many
they
times?
did expand
The
him.
emotional
They
impact
did.
I didn't learn-
this
They
random
followed
character
him because
dying.
that was, first of all, that guy, the one you're talking
So
about. If we're talking about the same person, right? That guy actually had a longer storyline, right? Like it started with back with Annie.
But okay,
right?
now here's what I'm saying. Here's an example of what a talented writer might have done, right? Maybe we could have seen the same type of corruption in the military police. Maybe we could have seen that through the eyes of Annie. It would have made her a more sympathetic character. We would have gotten to see the inner workings of the military police. We would have had more appreciation for her character as a villain. The reveal would have been more impactful because we actually would have cared about her rather than be like, oh yeah, Annie, she was one of the important people from 12 fucking episodes ago.
I agree, but like it's like, well, it didn't do exactly what I wanted them to do. Like what? Like
No,
that
it's not
doesn't
about not doing
mean-
exactly what I want to do. It's about them relying on shitty fucking tropes and just killing tons of characters and just having horrible fucking everything. And when I say
the
pacing
one
is bad,
example
like,
you give, the one example you give me actually was
You're
there for a
getting
while.
so much hate in chat right now.
Destiny's not wrong here, okay?
Sorry, it's a trash anime.
Attack on Titan is a
Vivian, what's your favorite anime? Say it right now.
Hey, let Vivian talk, please. Vivian, respond, and then give your bad takes. Go ahead.
Attack on Titan is a beautiful looking anime with an awesome concept told fucking terribly. And the only fucking thing that makes it so watchable is that it looks so good and that the concept is so fucking engaging.
And the why are there so many wrong?
Don't
as fuck.
Shut up. Don't worry, I'm gonna mute you since you can't.
It's all your fault, Paula. Yeah. And I would encourage Destiny to watch
So okay, so I didn't get to hear most of the last stuff you said because we kept talking over you. I apologize for Vivian. Please try again.
That's okay. Yeah, I'd encourage Destiny to like keep watching because I think in the later seasons, especially the most recent season, it does get a lot better at doing the storytelling, at widening the world, like you said, whilst keeping some of those characters that have been introduced that have crazy good backstories actually alive to actually do shit and actually care about. But
Fuck that, just watch Evangelion for the third time like a normal person.
Yes. Remember when we had to spend 3 episodes in that dumbass fucking tower to get introduced to all the people with Ymir and Historia that fucking died fucking instantly the next time? Why does that dumb fucking girl come out of nowhere? Whatever the scout people that were with the 2 people that got killed when the Titans were coming, right? Why does Historia, a character that we had no attachment to before, or I think she might have shown up in some of the earlier episodes, but nobody know because she was like one of the forgettable 50 million cast of characters we introduced. Why does she end up being the ultra important person? Talk about like fucking whiplash, where you're supposed to suddenly care about this person as being like central to like being the new fucking queen, heir of the fucking kingdom, when you had no connection to this person for like the first like 30 episodes of the anime. Listen, man.
You know what? I'll give that to Destiny. I don't know how people can give a fuck about Historia.
Yeah, but like you don't have to. First of all, you don't have. A story doesn't have to have you give a fuck about every single character, right?
It doesn't have to have you care about the character.
No. But not every character needs to be not fully fleshed out, but just like that, you have to have this massive emotional connection to them, right? Like, and it doesn't have to. And if you even if you are building emotional relevance to a character, it doesn't have to be immediately, right? So later on, we start learning about Historia's backstory, right? We start actually fleshing her out.
This is actually really true, and I like the point you bring up about the backstory. One of my favorite things about Attack on Titan is if you fall asleep and you miss 1 or 2 episodes, you're not actually missing anything because half the fucking series is flashbacks to earlier fucking episodes or flashbacks to flashbacks of things that hadn't happened.
Until the last season of Disney.
I have a critique of one of I was watching your stream. I was malding in chat. You said something about leave. I don't care if I spoil it. Can I spoil Prime? If it's okay if I talk about season 3, the ending of season 3? Your executive decision. Your executive decision. Okay.
No, don't do it.
Just give it spoiler
Season
warning.
3's been out for ages.
Spoiler warning. Mute for like the next 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, so you talked about Levi not killing the Beast Titan, and you're like, why would he do that?
Oh, because I missed that part. I missed that part. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's
Because
what I
I'd seen like, yeah,
thought.
no, that's you got me there. But that's because there's been like 30 times where Titans have like gotten away or escaped, and I'm like, just fucking kill him faster. But
You
you know
need to
what?
read the manga, man.
Yeah, maybe. Remember, here's my favorite mark of how shit Attack on Titan fans are. How many people in chat were telling me over and over and over again that Kenny was an awesome character, and I was so looking forward to.
Who's Kenny?
Wait, oh God, wait, who was the guy that was Levi's like?
He's a serial killer, right? It's like Levi's.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
you just proved his point. You just proved his point.
So many people are telling me this guy is awesome.
I just didn't remember his name.
Attack on Titan fans forgot his fucking name.
Hold on. Okay. First of all, that doesn't prove a fucking thing, right? Like.
I hate you so much, dude.
You two are fucking so bad faith. Holy crap. Okay, so it doesn't prove a fucking thing. My favorite manga happens to be One Piece, right? So like that's what I know. I don't have to memorized all these characters. I know what character you're fucking talking about. I thought was the most awesome. I never thought he was the most awesome character. I thought it was interesting enough.
You know what Kenny's purpose was in that fucking show? Kenny's purpose was to give you another flashback so you could understand how the fucking royal family worked. That's the only purpose Kenny's show was to give a flashback.
Why is that? First of all, why is that even a bad
Why
thing?
are you even watching anime that's more than 20 episodes when you could watch 1,001? When you could watch a 1,001 complete.
There's so few
Oh my God! One Piece fans sit at the top of the trash pile, right above JoJo fans, who are beneath, who make up the most trash. Stop! That's horrible anime.
Oh my God!
JoJo's
Okay, I might be the first Twitch streamer to literally ban Destiny live on air. Holy shit! Okay, look. First of all, my avatar is literally from One Piece. All right, so you're fucking with the wrong one. It's like if you look within my Discord. All the roles are One Piece, right? So I absolutely fucking love One Piece, and that for you to come in my house and trash fucking One Piece. First of all,
did you watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I watched and read Game of Thrones, and you should read it instead.
Attack of Titan. Do you remember in the later seasons of Game of Thrones when there was only an hour in an episode and you crossed your fingers every time a new scene came on? You're like, please don't be Sam and Gilly. Please don't be Sam, because you knew it was about to waste 20 minutes of fucking screen time. Now imagine watching Attack on Titan, okay? And every fucking time, like, shit is about to go crazy. I'm about to say crazy. And then the camera goes, it's like, oh no. And then he starts monologuing about some fucking glass of milk that his mom knocked over, and the whole 20 minutes of the episode is wasted on some stupid fucking monologue or some stupid fucking flashback. And I don't get to find out if did he fucking tighten the wall up? Did he actually build the wall? Did he actually kill the thing? And you've got to go to this is one of the, you know how I judge anime? You know how I judge shows in general? How much do you rely on shitty ass fucking cliffhangers to make people want to watch your fucking show? And every other fucking episode of Attack on Titan is a goddamn cliffhanger. Holy shit. Is it Zeno's paradox where you get infinitely closer to something, but you can never reach it because you only go there halfway? That's what an Attack on Titan episode is like. When you're watching it, you're never actually getting the action because there's going to be a monologue or a flashback or a monologue of a flashback or a flashback of a monologue at some point that's going to prevent you from ever getting there. Okay, listen, fuck Attack on Titan.
Okay, all right,
wait,
that's fine.
I have a question.
But why? But hold on, I gotta ask this because he brought it up and he brought it up in my house. All right, why? What's wrong with One Piece? Now the anime is not great, so fine. But like, I'm talking about the story of One Piece. Did you ever read the manga or anything, or are you just like fucking memeing, don't know anything about it, like a typical fake?
You know, some
anime
people have really bad reactions to drugs because they had a friend that they lost to drug. I lost a friend to One Piece, so that's why I don't. I'm going to be honest with you, okay?
Okay.
Wait, Steve, does One Piece ever end? Has it ended yet?
No, it has not ended it yet because they're working on the fucking story. And then you're going to cry. Oh, I love it when people cry about the length, right? They're building this.
No. It's not about the length, dude. It's about the fact that like good stories have a beginning.
No. First of all, it does have an end. First of all, because you don't know shit about One Piece. No, Mixed Fabian Wolf, you don't know fucking shit about One Piece. If you're going to say it doesn't, good stories have a beginning, middle, and end. Obviously, you don't even know the point of fucking One Piece. If that's the case, because
I know the point. The point is
no, you don't, because then you don't know what you're fucking talking about, because it does have an end. They are working towards that end right now, right? So anyway, it's literally within its end phases, right? No, first of all, you have no fucking clue. So all right, so opinion invalidated. Yeah. Okay.
You know what the funny thing is here is Primecayes is crying so hard earlier about like, oh, tuition should be free. We can't pay back our college education. Those investments aren't worth it. And he ignores the fact that you have to invest like 450 episodes into fucking One Piece before you even get to a good art. Okay.
you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Wait. Listen, I think
no fucking rewarding.
I think
No
Destiny
reward.
was just that type of kid that just hates everything that's popular.
Wait,
I bet
what?
it's still
You
just
love to
hated
play League of
D&D.
Legends, mate. Okay, you're
My
missing a
top
whole lot of
3
time to
animes.
nothing.
My top 3 animes are literally Cowboy Bebop, Steins Gate, and fucking Death Note. Okay, so I love accessible, popular shit. Okay,
Wait, I thought you said you fucking wait. I thought you said you fucking hate anime that relies upon like cliffhangers. Like Death Note is the fucking quintessential cliffhanger anime. They like cliffhanger every.
Yeah, but it
fucking
has less
episode you're
flashbacks,
engaged.
so it's okay.
Oh, that's all that matters.
It's really good. I like it, but I'm just saying, like, if that's something you hate, Death Note is that.
I have one question. Okay, this one matters more than Attack on Titan. Steven, have you seen Code Geass?
Yeah.
What don't? What you?
Season 1 is really good. Season 2, I think, goes a little bit off the rails towards the end. If you were to ask me to tell you what happens at the end of Season 2, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But the rest of the anime is pretty cool, I think. It's okay.
Destiny, have you seen?
I respect that.
Have you seen Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinji?
If it sounds too Japanese, I probably haven't seen it.
Okay. This is the problem, right? Like, so many people fucking bring up like, fucking shonen animes, and we're all like, I don't know, mid-20s, coming on early 30s, and like everybody wants to watch a fucking battle anime.
Okay, look, you don't like fun things. That's okay, mixed with look, I love you. Look, I love you. Look, I love you, but you don't like fun things, right? Look, spend your time on your fucking slice of life bullshit, right? Like, oh man, look at these guys. They're going to the pizza store. Oh, amazing, right? I didn't know fucking stories.
That's nothing like what this show is about.
I don't know. I don't know what show you're talking about. Like, and it literally doesn't matter, right? But look. Battle Shonen have constantly at the top of the charts because they are the most interesting ones, right? That's why people read them, watch them. That's why One Piece. That's why One Piece is the just took the title for the longest running series by a single author, right? Like, best-selling series by a single author, like, period, right? The Guinness World Record for that. He beats Superman.
He beat Superman.
No. He beat the guy who did Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama. He took the record from him. God. So yeah, it's amazing because Battle Shonen are simply a superior form of anime, the best form of anime.
Oh shit! Wait, hold on. I'm unmuted. Wait a minute. Destiny, I gotta say something real quick. Why is it that every single time that like someone shits on like popular anime, they're always fucking Cowboy Bebop fans? I swear, every single fucking time. Oh, Naruto is bad. Oh, Attack on Titan is bad. Oh, One Piece is bad. They always say
because they have
Cowboy Bebop is fucking
dude.
good. Cowboy
What do you
Bebop
wanna
fans are the
fucking
most toxic fucking high horse motherfuckers I've seen in my entire goddamn life. Every single goddamn one of them.
Attack on Titan has terrible.
This is why I will never watch that fucking anime, because Cowboy Bebop fans are the worst on the entire fucking planet. Fuck that shit ass anime and fuck its fans. Fuck you.
So Cowboy Bebop is great.
I'm sorry you like good things.
Cowboy Bebop is great. It's just that Destiny's takes are shit, uniquely shit. Okay, no, it's okay.
My favorite thing about Attack on Titan is how the least amount of time is spent on the most interesting characters. Honestly, you know what? You could have just given me 20 episodes following fucking Erwin around and his daily activities, and would have been a million times more interesting than watching the other You know what, dude? Who was shitting on Slice of Life? You're right, dude. Slice of Life is shit. And you know what? That's like 80% of what fucking Attack on Titan is.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Wait.
This
I'm
is the
sorry.
Walking Dead, right? It's just following around the people, and like you don't even get to see zombies or shit. It's just the fucking people talking the whole time, and they're like, "Oh no." Let me
help you, okay? Because I'm about as smart as Armin, okay? If you really wanted to win an Attack on Titan, okay? If you really wanted to win an Attack on Titan, why don't you just load the useless fuck Eren up in a fucking catapult and launch him into the fucking wilderness? And then when he's captured, okay, just send fucking Mikasa and Levi after him, and they'll go kill every fucking Titan on the way. There you go. You solved the whole fucking anime. Like, there you go. Everything is done.
He hasn't seen season 4 yet. Oh no.
Unfortunately, the Titans aren't the main enemy.
Don't
seen season 4 yet. What Eren did in season 4.
We already know that. We already know that in the anime. People already know that in the anime. Yeah, fair enough.
I know. Yeah. I'll say this. Okay, I'll declare it, Prime. I'm going to disagree with you on this one. Gurren Lagann is the best anime.
Gurren Lagann is amazing. It's amazing.
I've ever watched. The best, but it's really good.
It's an example of a battle anime done right.
Best. Steven, have you seen that one? Do you want to shit on everyone else's like livelihood, like our hearts and souls now? Have you seen Gurren Lagann?
Yeah, Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann.
I don't have time for this shit. Okay, I don't even know. I don't have time for these panel shows. I don't know how I get fucking dragged into this shit.
No,
but
you
I don't
fucking
have time to
walked
watch
in
it.
here.
Yeah, I know because someone said something that triggered the fuck out of me.
But
Nice to see you here, bud.
yeah, but that's a good. Like, oh, I'm too fucking busy. Oh, look at me.
Oh my god.
Yeah, okay, sure, buddy. But yeah, Gurren Lagann, amazing. Everyone, I highly suggest you watch it. Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann.
The real question is, can any of these characters beat Goku? That is the real question.
Unironically, probably.
No.
Wait, hold on, Tengen. Wait,
don't care then.
I literally do power scale debates. Fuck off. Tengen Toppa and Gurren Lagann cannot beat Goku. I'm sorry. At least not Dragon Ball Super Goku. Dragon Ball Z
These
Goku.
conversations are like the most boring conversations by the most boring fucking battle anime fans. I swear to God, can such and such beat such and such? Who fucking cares?
Sorry, I'm sorry. They're too big
Dio
for you,
versus
right?
Sailor Moon.
All I'm saying is Superman would beat the fuck out of Goku. That's what I'm
Which Superman? Which one?
Any of them. Probably even the movie version.
You are putting me to sleep.
Superman, and he can't answer. Clearly, I'm much bigger than him. Fucking hell.
The problem with comics is that like their stories are so shit that they got to make 10,000 versions of them just to land on like.
When you say comic, you're including
one good story.
You're including all comics in that, right? You're including all comics in that, right?
Marvel and DC comics.
Oh, because manga, that's just comics.
Okay.
Fuck off.
Yeah,
Fuck off.
it is. I'm
Okay.
sorry, but I agree with your take. As long as manga is subsumed by the word comics there, yes, 100%, they are all shit.
Okay,
True.
all right. Well, no.
Whoa,
Okay, all right.
Gantz is not shit.
Now we're fighting again.
That's
Oh my
a weird
god.
take.
How do you have so many bad takes, right? I'm like, oh man.
What is good media to you, Destiny? What the fuck?
It's just manga is just garbage.
Oh, wow.
You want to know what's triggered the
Hold
most
on.
out of me, Case?
What's your favorite TV show, Destiny?
I
What
get
is it?
triggered
Let's
about
hear
the
it.
non-linear fucking story progression in every fucking manga I've tried to read. Every single manga I read, for some reason, they always spoil the end, like right at the start. I've never fucking understood
What are you
this.
talking about? That's not a thing. That's not a thing. What are you talking about? You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Did Berserk spoil the ending? What?
Yeah.
What? No, not at all, right? But it was not a linear. It was not linear. But like, did it spoil the ending? Absolutely not. One Piece? Absolutely
None of the
fucking not,
shonens do
right?
this either, actually.
Yeah, Naruto? No. Hunter? Absolutely not.
Sorry,
Like, what?
Berserk starts with the fucking dude walking into the fucking thing when he's already.
I literally just said that Berserk is non-linear. I did say that. But literally all the others, like, what the fuck? You're just this is what I'm talking about. He's just making shit up, guys. Like, don't be like.
How many mangas has he actually read?
Don't be like.
He probably hasn't read any.
Everyone here, right? It's like Justin, you're so fucking smart.
Okay, hold on. That was a
brain.
high level joke. I forgot. None of you guys actually read physical manga. You all read it digitally. Okay, that's why you didn't understand the joke. My bad there. Okay, I was speaking at too high a level.
There's literally no difference between the two. Fuck off.
Okay, first
my joke. There is a difference. What?
What's the difference?
When you read an actual manga, you have to they flip the pages the other way. That was the joke. And if you try to read it like a yeah, but that's okay. If you guys have ever actually bought if you buy traditional manga, it'll usually give you a warning on the first page. It says warning, don't start here.
You read it right to left online as well. You fucking
yeah.
But you don't have the first. Never mind. I got baited. I almost got baited. That was close. Okay, I almost got baited there. Nice try.
Wait, they have. I've never read a physical manga, and I never plan to. That is for like people who are over the age of 30. That's not for me.
Oh, I mean, well, I have for fuck. Now it's escaping me. Helsing. I read the Helsing. I collected those. That was a long time ago though. But
do you want to read like fucking Trail of Blood?
Trail of Blood is good. All right, so that's not a battle shonen, and I love it. That's really good.
Okay, I love you all. I needed to sleep an hour ago, though. Okay.
Oh, but before you go, Steven, before you go, hold on, before you go, you're not gonna run from me, are you? I mean, this.
Nope. Message me anytime. I stream 10 hours a day, and we'll go. Okay.
Okay, we'll go. All right.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.
A flash of 1,000 terrible thoughts sprint across your brain. Can I do this? Can I be a man who fucks his own mother? Can I marry her? What would Robert think?